Let's be friends.
Have you not?
And here we go. And as the man said, and here we go. And welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing, ladies and gentlemen. Hope y'all are having a wonderful Saturday night. Saturday night. It's Sunday. Sunday night. Hope y'all are having a wonderful Sunday night. Hope y'all are having a wonderful weekend. And we are back. We are live. I am back live with you all this evening on the Ambassadorial Wing. And if this is your first visit, what exactly do we do here on the Ambassadorial Wing? Well, we talk film. We talk cinema. We talk about the films that we love. We talk about the films that may not be so good. But we talk about film from the modern, the retro, and the ultra retro eras. And if this is your first visit, I hope you enjoy the stream tonight. I hope you enjoy the review. Hope you enjoy the discussion. And as always, make sure you batarang that like button. Share this stream out with all your friends who are fans of Batman, fans of DC Comics, fans of this particular pair of films from the 80s and the 90s, and two, I will say, masterpieces by a brilliant directorial mind, that of course being the one and only Mr. Tim Burton. But before we get into the discussion, what exactly brought about this stream this evening? Well, back a few months ago, I dropped a little short on my YouTube account, on my YouTube channel, listing my top 5 favorite movies from the 80s, well, specifically the year of 1989. And this was Batman 89 was amongst one of those films. And yes, Batman 89 is by far, amongst all the Batman movies that have been released over the last several decades, by far one of my favorites, and is obviously the whole reason why we have cinematic Batman films in the first place. And it is honestly, I never got to see Batman on the big screen. This movie kind of came and went, unfortunately, or anything in my young childhood or anything when I was coming up, and I never had the opportunity to see Batman 89 on the big screen. Saw it on the small screen, rented a whole bunch when Blockbuster was still a thing, and it to say it grew on me is an understatement, because as a fan of comic books, a fan of superheroes, and particularly Batman, this movie really opened my eyes to how a superhero movie could be done properly. Not just a superhero movie, but a great movie just on its own. Now, obviously, I did grow up with the 1960s. Granted, I wasn't alive then, but the reruns of the 1960s Adam West Batman show, with its very campy and very cheesy storytelling and dialogue and design of the Batmobile and the Batcave and so on. But all the same, when I finally got to see this, see Batman 89, I was, for a word, blown away. I mean, this is a film that stands on its own as one of the greatest films of all time, but honestly, also one of the greatest superhero films, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And tonight we are going to we are going to talk all things Batman, particularly Batman 89 and Batman Returns. And I will say, back a few years ago, they did some re-releases for the 4 Batman films, the two by Tim Burton and the 2 by Joel Schumacher. Batman Returns was the only one I got a chance to see. Now, granted, my first time seeing a Batman movie in theaters, for those who know or those who may not know, was in fact Batman Forever. And I have discussed Batman Forever on this channel. I have a video on my playlist or anything from Marvel and DC. I did a watch along for Batman Forever, so I've pretty much covered Batman Forever as far as I'm going to cover it. But I've only done like one short video on Batman 89, and a good friend of the channel and everything popped into my DMs on my social media, and he's like, "Hey, Ambassador, can we do a review of Batman and Batman Returns?" I'm like, "Let's put it on the books." Now, unfortunately, it took a while to get here. Uh, Life cuts in the way for both he and I, and it was one of those things we finally had to figure out. We finally were able to hammer out a date, hammer out a time, and get everything lined up so that we could do this review tonight. So, but before he gets in here, while we're waiting for him to get in here, while everybody else is getting in here, I'll just share my thoughts briefly on my history with Batman, and a little more than what I've already given. Most of you know I am a Marvel fan. This is pretty much a given. I grew up reading Marvel comics, to a lesser degree, DC comics. But the one DC comic I did read and everything was Batman. He was a character that intrigued me, that interested me. I grew up watching the Batman animated series from the 90s and everything, a very well put together, very mature series of film, or animated series. Um, and it really set the trend and really set the for more mature Batman content. I mean, obviously, Batman 89 really set the benchmark for a more serious and a more mature take on Batman as a character. And over the last several days, I've been doing a lot of research on the character, and I'll share some of my insights on what I found out and just my own personal takes as the review goes along this evening. But Batman is that one character in all, and pretty much in all of comic book of all the comic book universes, whether it's Marvel or DC, Batman is seemingly the one character that is truly accessible to the everyday person. And in that his skills and abilities are attainable. Now, granted, yes, you may be a little bit restricted depending on your financial situation, considering Bruce Wayne is a millionaire, if not a billionaire. But aside from that, you can train your body to be as physically fit as Bruce Wayne's is. You can train your mind to be as sharp and as well educated as Bruce Wayne's is. You can, in essence, be Batman. You just have to be very careful in terms of law enforcement. But for the creator of Batman, that of course being Bob Kane, and many of the contributors, one most notable, that of course being Bill Finger, he Bob Kane was very much influenced by characters like Zorro and everything, which was a character that was very well known from his childhood, and characters like the Shadow and everything from his childhood, the radio drama and everything that was at one time voiced by Orson Welles. And Batman has honestly, in his many decades of existence, has become a iconic character, and a character that many actors have had the opportunity to portray either on the big or small screen, either in live action or in animation. And I have covered the other Batman projects on the show. Of course, I've talked about Batman versus Superman. I've talked about the Justice League. I've discussed um, the brand new Batman project, or anything being headed up by Tim Miller and starring Robert Pattinson. And Batman is, whether you are a comic book fan or you are not, if you're just a fan of good characters and good storytelling, Batman is one of those characters that always intrigues us and always brings us back for more, for more of his adventures, for more exploration of his psyche, for more exploration of him as a character. And what was done in Batman 89 was very bold, was very risky, and um groundbreaking in a lot of ways, because up until then, comic books were seen as kid stuff, and comic and superhero movies were very much a rarity compared to nowadays. The only other superhero movie that existed before Batman 89, of course, was the one by Richard Donner, that being, of course, the first Superman film starring Christopher Reeves as, well, Superman. And Superman did gangbusters, did very well at the box office, was very well received by the public, and really set a high benchmark for what a superhero movie could be. And when the talks were going on for a Batman movie to be put up on the big screen, it was by no means a simple or easy journey. I think as I was going through, as I mentioned, as I was going through my research the last couple of days, you would think something as simple and as seemingly as profitable and as popular as a Batman movie would be a no-brainer. It would be just like signing a few contracts and bibbity bobbity boom, let's make a Batman movie. Far from the truth. The Batman 89 had a lot going against it seemingly, but at the same time, it had a lot going for it because you had a lot of people working on the crew, working as writers, as directors, as producers that were like, we really want to bring this movie to the big screen. We really want to bring this movie to the public, and we want to show that superhero movies and comic books aren't just kid stuff anymore. And over a course of about 10 years, the producers, the writers, the director, once they were able to get a director on board, that of course being Tim Burton, they fought like madmen and mad women to get the green light, to get the funding to put this movie into production. And it's really a testament to this character of Batman itself that you have all these people working so hard to bring something as simplistic as a superhero movie to the big screen. Now, obviously, they wanted to do this because they had a passion for the character. They obviously figured that this would be very financially rewarding for them. And there's nothing obviously wrong with that at all. But to listen to and watch these people talk about getting this movie into production is really a testament to the storytellers of the film industry in the 80s, the 70s, the 90s to a degree, and so on. Because they wanted to tell a good story. There was no other agenda here. And no, I won't be going into some diatribe about agenda in filmmaking. That's not my point here. That's not the goal of this. That's not the reason for this stream tonight, for this review. It's to discuss these movies because these movies are worth discussing. And they are both. I want to emphasize that both of these movies are masterpieces in their own ways. The truth is, for the longest time, I kind of regarded Batman Returns as a lesser film compared to the first one, and I'll explain why. I have only watched Batman Returns all the way through maybe once, maybe 1.5 times, if that. And I never watched it from start to finish. There was always something always came up, or I simply got disinterested. But in preparing for this review, I came to realize something about Batman Returns. It is equally as good as Batman 89. It has just as much passion, just as much enthusiasm, and just as much creativity, and everything across the board as all the well, at least the first Batman movie did, Batman 89. The one thing that was very off-putting for me with Batman Returns was the character of the Penguin. All the other characters, of course, Batman, you got Selena Kyle, Catwoman, you've got Christopher Walken as Max Schreck, the industrialist, who was a bit more sleazy and a lot more sleazy and a lot more underhanded compared to Bruce Wayne as an industrialist. But Danny DeVito's performance as the Penguin, as Oswald Cobblepot, I was more accustomed to the Penguin from the comic books and obviously from the '60s Batman series. Obviously, Burgess Meredith played the Penguin in that series, and of course the live action movie that was done for the Adam West Batman series. So I was very taken aback by Danny DeVito's performance. But the other day when I was watching it, something clicked with me. The Penguin in this story is a broken character, and actually a character that I can, to a degree, not on a more sinister or evil level, but more on a different level. For those of you who've probably seen Batman Returns, you know that the opening of the movie it's the birth of Oswald Cobblepot to his parents, and of course, a slight of a little note there. It turned out and everything, and I had to double check this because I wasn't quite sure. But one of Penguin's parents was actually played by Paul Rubens, aka Pee Wee Herman. For those of you who remember that TV show, and all the fallout from Paul Rubens' own personal exploits outside of the show. Penguin was born deformed. And because he was deformed and not the perfect child that his parents thought he should have been, they take him to Gotham Park. They take his stroller. They have put a buckle or a large belt over the top of the stroller, and they dump him over the side of the bridge. Now, this wasn't a high elevation bridge. It was a simple walkover bridge that you would see in any park. And the Penguin's parents abandoned him because he was unwanted. I was not abandoned in the same way that the Penguin was, and nor do I hold a grudge or any ill will towards my biological parents. For those of you who know, I was adopted at birth, but the circumstances are far less sinister in that circumstance than they are here in Batman Returns. But I came to understand just how broken and how separated, how alienated the Penguin was because of what his parents did to him. Now, I was able to locate my biological parents, namely my biological mother. My biological father was sadly deceased by the time I found them. And my biological mother explained it to me very simplistically and very plainly and civilly. They simply were not cut out to be parents. But at the same time, I couldn't feel but a pang of abandonment because it still hurt. Not only did they abandon me, or well, rather, they did not abandon me, but they did not wish to keep me and raise me. They gave me to another couple who I call my mom and dad and who I love deeply and still do to this day. But there is still that tinge of resentment that why, after all those years, after all those decades, did you not just reach out to me and say, hey, we're here. This is who we are. If you want to talk to us, we're here. Whereas I've dealt with my resentment and my pain in a much more rational way, the Penguin dealt with his in a much more antagonistic and violent and resentful way. And there are people who deal with trauma that do handle things in that fashion. Unfortunately, it can be both destructive and self-destructive, and that is true for the Penguin. But as I was sitting there watching the movie, and it was getting towards the midpoint after his rejection by the people of Gotham, but and he's like, "I am not a man. I am an animal. My name is not Oswald Cobblepot. I am the Penguin." And he goes on this absolutely unhinged rant where even his own gang is a bit taken aback by him. And if you look at a lot of the characters in Batman's Rogues Gallery, they are all people who are broken to one degree or another. Now, we'll come back to Batman Returns in a little bit. I want to just touch on that point with the Penguin briefly, but we'll come back to Batman Returns shortly. But if you look at Batman's Rogues Gallery and the seemingly endless array of villains that inhabit that gallery, there's obviously a handful that stand above the rest. And obviously, for Batman 89, they wanted to pick the most iconic and the most remarkable villain for that film, and that, of course, was the Joker. Now, to say that Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker is by far one of my all-time favorites is an understatement. Jack Nicholson is Jack Napier. Jack Nicholson is the Joker in all of his deranged glory. And I do like the take that the performance that he gives. I truly and sincerely and genuinely do. Because he really, and I mean really, brings it home with his performance. Even before he is in the suit, even before he goes through his surgery, he absolutely positively nails his performance here. I mean, aside from Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, we have not had, I think, a better Joker since then. And I do want to say hello to the chat and anything to a face I have not seen in a very, very long time. Superior Hero Collectibles. It has been a while, my friend. And obviously, good to see you. So, you can see the thing. You can see the thing. You can hear what I'm saying. That's what's up. So, but honestly, Jack Nicholson is one of those actors who can play a deranged character very well, because that's primarily what he's done throughout his career, except with a few rare exceptions. And Nicholson's casting as the Joker could not have been better. Truly and honestly, could not have been better, because he fits that role like a hand in a glove. And he plays the henchman to Jack Palance's gangster character of Carl Grissom. And I have to say, I have watched many movies in my lifetime with Jack Palance in them. This is by far one of my favorites. Grant, he only has like 2 or 3 scenes in the course of the film before he is, of course, killed by the Joker, by Jack Nicholson's character. But the way he talks, the way he moves his body, it's very... he has a particular acting, or he had a particular acting style, and it very much worked and everything. And the thing I like about Batman 89, it does start off primarily as a crime fighter going up against organized crime. I mean, you have the Gotham Police Department trying to take out organized crime in Gotham City. You don't get the introduction of the supervillains, or the supervillain, that being, of course, the Joker, until much later in the movie. And even then, Batman and the Gotham Police Department are still fighting against organized crime, except this time it has a very outlandish face. Of course, being the deformed face of Jack Napier as the Joker. Some people have had issue with the fact that we do get an origin story for the Batman and the fact that he actually is the person who ended up killing Bruce Wayne's parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne. But at the same time, I don't think in this case it breaks the lore of the character because honestly, the Joker has had so many origins throughout his history. And he has had so many incarnations throughout his history. Obviously, we have the comic book arc incarnation. We have the Cesar Romero incarnation from the Adam West series. We have this one, obviously. We have the Joker from the various animated series that have come out over the years. So I think for this particular story, having a link between the Joker and Batman is not inherently a bad thing. Not to mention that we have a origin and we have a name for the Joker. Because all those other incarnations still exist and they're by no means erased or undone because of one storytelling choice that was made. But to say I am a fan of Jack Nicholson's work as the Joker and just in general of his work throughout his career is an understatement. Every movie I've ever seen Jack Nicholson in, I have absolutely loved, and this obviously is no exception. You know, and the first time I ever saw Batman, it was like I mentioned, it was never on the big screen. I never had the opportunity to see it then. But it was actually a few weeks or so before Batman Returns or Batman Forever went into theaters back in the mid 90s. And I think it was one of the local TV stations was running both Batman and the first two Batman movies before Batman Forever came out in theaters. And I was sitting there one night in our home, and I was off from work. Mother Ambassador was at work at the time, and I was just flipping through the channels, and I saw the big political meeting for Harvey Dent, played by Billy D. Williams. And I was like, "Ooh, I think I know this." And then I saw the name card on the table and said Bruce Wayne. This has got to be Batman '89. So I stuck with it, and I'm like, once I was finished, I was like, I need to see this again. Unfortunately, at the time, we did not own a VCR. We did not get a VCR until I think it was like 97. No, it was later. It was like 98 or 99 is when we finally got our first VCR. I know a long time passed when everybody else did. But honestly, I was just absolutely in awe of the performances that I saw in this movie. I mean, you got Jack Nicholson, you've got Michael Keaton, who I had known from Beetlejuice. I had seen Beetlejuice, and also another little movie that he had done in the early '80s, and that was of course Mr. Mom. And there was a lot of people that are going, Michael Keaton, the guy from Mr. Mom, is Batman? Are you kidding me? And there was a lot of issues and everything with Michael Keaton playing Batman because nobody really thought he could he could carry the role, could play the part. And when they did that early trailer release or anything, and people saw him in the suit, heard him talking, heard him playing the role, saw a few clips of action scenes involving the Batman, that shut all the detractors right the hell up. Everybody. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, Michael Keaton can be Batman. Most definitely. And I'm like, yeah, obviously he can be Batman because that's one of the only two three Batman I actually recognize. No, because I'll recognize Pattinson too. But this movie has stuck with me all my life, both and Batman Returns to a lesser degree, but still. Batman 89 really showed me that eventually we would live in a world where superhero movies would be more commonplace. And Batman Forever was obviously my first introduction to a cinematic Batman. But this one, Batman 89, really opened my eyes to what the character had originally been introduced as, without all the stylized choices that were done later on by Joel Schumacher and the people working around him. The bat suit, especially the Batmobile, I love that Batmobile. One of the best designed Batmobiles ever. All the other Batmobiles just kind of pale in comparison because it's stylized, it's functional, it's menacing, and it for me is the quintessentially best Batmobile or anything. All the other ones, the one was used in the Adam West series, it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was very, very good. Um, the one for the Dark Knight trilogy, the Tumbler, I like the Tumbler. I won't lie, but the Batmobile for Batman Forever, it was okay, and the one for Batman and Robin, don't get me started. But the one for Batman 89 and for Batman Returns, that for me was the perfect, I mean, absolutely perfect Batmobile. It's got the machine guns, it's got the bombs, it's got the shield. I love that whole feature, and the way they pulled that special effect off, just perfect. Absolutely, positively perfect. But it it bordered the line between realism and surrealism, and well, fictional realism, because it had those bat wings on the back. It had the jet engine on the back, just like with the Adam West Batman Batmobile. I think it kept that one feature, and I think that was the one feature that it should have kept. And I'm glad that it did. And it you see pictures, you see images of the Batmobile, and your eyes just think like, man, I wish I had that car. The Batmobile from Batman 89 and Batman Returns, you're like, I wish I had that damn car. I really do. I did. I'm not gonna lie and say I wouldn't. But it's a wonderful thing to revisit these movies because it reminds you of what good storytelling could be and what good storytelling was. And the stories that we have both in Batman 89 and Batman Returns are well written, are well acted, are grounded, are believable, and they don't go too far out of bounds of what the audience will accept. I mean, okay, let's go to the Joker just as an example. You've got this guy, he's a made man in this criminal organization, but he's got his eyes on the boss lady's woman. And the boss the boss man, the mob boss, Carl Grissom, played by Jack Palance, is like, my my friend, your luck is about to change. And he calls the police department because at this point, the Gotham Police Department is corrupt. They've got dirty cops. I mean, obviously we have the one cop and everything played by Detective Eckhart, and you have that meeting in the alleyway between Eckhart and Jack at that time, not the Joker. And Eckhart's like, "You, there is no future. You're not gonna run the show, Jack. Grissom knows you're an A-class nut boy." And Jack comes back. He's like, "You should think about the future." And then you have that great payoff in the factory when Napier and his guys and everything break in there to make it look like it's a case of industrial espionage. And Eckhart's just wandering around the factory, and Napier's staying up on this balcony and everything, looking down on him. And he says, "Hey, Eckhart, think about the future." Pew! And just wastes him right then and there. Great, absolutely great, awesome scene. It really just tells you just how much this guy is not to be trifled with. But then he has his encounter with the Batman, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, but he gets dumped in that vat of chemicals and washes out into Gotham River. Somehow survives. Hey, stranger things happen. This is a comic. This is a superhero movie. We have to remember there is such a thing as suspension of disbelief. And he staggers to this back alley doctor's office, and the doctor is like, "Let's see how we did." And he starts to take the bandages off Jack's head. And then you see the doctor's face. And he's like, "Oh my god." And Jack is like, "Mirror. Mirror." And the doctor's like, "I can only do so much. You see what I have to work with here." And Jack just comes unhinged. He smashes the mirror. He starts having this absolutely unhinged, hysterical laughing fit. And then he shows back up at his boss's penthouse. Talk about balls. Big, giant, Gotham-sized balls. And you can barely make out. Now, this is one thing I do want to comment on. I got this, or rather, Madam Ambassador got me all four of the 80s and 90s Batman films on Blu-ray. The one thing I wish they had done with the transfer from DVD to Blu-ray for Batman 89 is I wish they had darkened or put more shadow or like it originally was, because in the original version, in the regular DVD or VHS version of Batman 89, you cannot make out the Joker's face. In the Blu-ray and probably the 4K, because I imagine if it doesn't have it already has a 4K transfer of Batman 89, you can make out his face just a little too well. Just a little bit. You see that white pasty skin, and I think that takes away just a little bit of the mystery. Even though you've probably seen that scene a million times. I wish they had kept that shadow and everything on his face just a little bit more, and then when you have him pull back his hat and he's like, "Jack is dead, my friend. The name is Joker." As you can see, I'm a lot happier. And he whacks his boss. Takes him out. And honestly, it's just one of those truly great moments in comic book history and superhero movie history, because you have the reveal of one of the absolutely most iconic villains in all of superhero movies in terms of comic books in general. And this isn't Cesar Romero. This isn't some campy, cheesy take on the Joker. This is a cold-blooded killer. This is a criminal. This is a mobster. This is a thug, and this is a madman who's now got his hands on the seemingly limitless resources of Carl Grissom's criminal empire. And he looks over the apps that whole segment of film, but there are two quotes, and the other one is, "Winged freak terrorizes why do they get a load of me? Nobody can deliver that line like Jack Nicholson did. Nobody. But that really told you right then and there. This was a character not to be trifled with. He was a killer. No ifs, ands, or buts. And it was very refreshing because he was the first in a long line, or at least let me put it this way: he was the second greatest, or maybe third greatest entry in terms of superhero villains and onto the big screen that we had gotten. Obviously, we had Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Obviously, we had Terrence Stamp as General Zod, and now we had Jack Nicholson as the Joker. That's rarefied company. That is truly, truly rarefied company right there. And since then, we've gotten some very standout performances and obviously some very exceptional performances, obviously with Heath Ledger's turn as the Joker in the Dark Knight film. I always found it interesting that Jack Nicholson, he gave Ledger a bit of advice when he was cast for the Joker for the Dark Knight. He told Ledger, "Don't try and copy me. Do it your own way." And obviously he did, but unfortunately he wasn't able to detach himself from his performance. So, but to bring a different point of view to this review this evening, the reason why we are here this evening, my friend, your friend, a geek amongst geeks, a ambassador amongst ambassadors, Ferris Geeks World.
Hey, Ambassador, how's it going?
Doing just fine, Ferris. How are you?
All good. Sorry, a bit late though, because I gotta put the baby girl to sleep as
I
usual.
understand. You're fine. So, I kept things going. You're fine. So, um, I've been discussing Batman '89 so far, but we can go wherever you want to go from here. So, the floor is yours, buddy.
Well, to be honest though, this wasn't the first like Batman movie to my eyes because again I was born like 5 years after '89 came out, and my first introduction was actually the animated
Mm-hmm.
series. So from there, I get to like see Forever first because that was the movie that came out at the time, and after that, of
Mm-hmm.
course, the holy abomination, which is Batman and Robin. Yeah, I have those two on my VHS back then. So I
Yes.
I never had that. Yeah, I never had that movie experience. That theater experience that I have with Forever or Batman and Robin because I watched both of them on VHS. And like the impact of the animated series, kind of got me into the movies also. So, which is why Forever was like the first movie that I watched, and after that, I watched Batman and Robin. But until like we get to me and my childhood friend get to play like Batman all the time, his older brother like came to us and said, "You guys better watch the first movie." Like, like I thought to myself, like there was another one like before Forever, so he showed me a VHS copy of
Mm-hmm.
'89 and Returns. So me and my childhood friend, we sat down and watched the movie, and I thought, like my first impression with the movie is like, wow, this is like a lot darker than Forever and Batman and Robin. Like, like was this like the
Mm-hmm.
the pioneer? Was this like the pioneer to like the animated series and everything? And my childhood
Mm-hmm.
friend's older brother was like, yes, this was the movie that had a huge impact on cinema. So I was kind of surprised, like '89 was actually the first movie that kind of revitalized Batman's character, yeah, as a whole, not just in the comics but also in the media as well. So it's no wonder, like when I thought of Batman the animated series, I thought like Batman the animated series kind of inspired '89, but which is actually the other way around. So so I guess like animated series kind of like inspired Forever and Batman and Robin, kind of like, yeah, kind of like different than '89. So I guess like my thoughts, like since I was a kid, like okay, I get so I guess animated series influence mm, Forever and Batman and Robin, but not '89, because '89 was actually the first movie that inspired like every creator and writers to create, Batman in comics or in media. But I'll be honest though, because like the first time that I watched '89 on VHS, like I get this different feel and atmosphere, like when it comes to the setting. I thought like the production set was like so different compare my experience like watching Forever or Batman or Robin on VHS, because like this was actually like the movie that kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if this was the first movie to kind of bring Tim Burton's career up into scale, or maybe it was Beetlejuice. I don't know which one, but I think like like Batman '89 had a really huge impact to like everywhere. So now when I saw like Michael Keaton for first time as Bruce Wayne, it's like, huh, okay, that's a different Bruce Wayne. So when I see him in the suit, it's like, okay, like that is totally like that is totally Batman right there. Like when I totally get, it's totally Batman right there. So like I watched the whole movie like from beginning to end. Like, to be honest though, like the character of Batman, like with Joker, I like the whole like rivalry between two villains, but I felt like we get to know more of Joker compared to Batman. And I'll admit, the Joker in this movie, you know, like Jack Nicholson, like he totally killed it. I mean, I think this is probably like my first the first movie that I get to know Jack Nicholson as an actor, because I don't know like which movie that I first watched him. I think it was '89, because in the 2000s, like the first movie that I see him in the 2000s was Anger Management with Adam Sandler. That was classic. So when I see him in '89, it's like wow, this is like totally Jack Nicholson level performance there, because like he was like totally gangster in this movie, because this Joker here, I mean, unlike the animated series, which is my first introduction, like this Joker is like totally gangster compared to like the other, interpretation that I've seen over the years. And since you recently just talked about Heath Ledger, I mean, I think like every Joker actor have to bring like another kind of character. Like you have to create something like totally different, because I like until I watch like '89, I get to like see like what other Jack Nicholson's movies that he did. I mean, I did like watch The Shining in my college years or my adult years, and I guess that's probably like the movie that kind of got him into cast to be cast as the Joker. Even though like I've read like so many other actors were in content to play the Joker, like beside Nicholson. There, I heard like Brad Dourif, who played Chucky from Child's Play, wasn't considered. Robin Williams also considered. Ironically, Robin Williams was also considered for the character that Jack Nicholson played in The Shining, but then after that, he got considered for Joker, which then he passed on and went to Jack Nicholson. Which is like, this is probably the second time that Robin Williams passed on a role after The Shining, which was given to Jack Nicholson. I thought that was a fun fact to give an information here, because I think like Jack, and like literally every Jack Nicholson performance has this craziness, go up. It's no wonder he was typecast like in everything crazy related.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well,
that's just
Jack
me though.
Nicholson. Well, no, because the fact is, Jack Nicholson, a lot of his roles, he does deal with a character that is psychologically deranged or psychologically damaged. I mean, if you look at some of his more well known roles besides the Joker, I mean, look at his performance in One Flew with Cuckoo's Nest. Chinatown is another one where he plays a very unstable detective, I believe it is. Um, Jack Nicholson has a talent for playing a deranged character and doing it well and making it not just crazy, going. he brings a level of grounding to his performance. The thing for me with Jack Nicholson's Joker is he has that sinister edge to him, but he also has a little bit of the silliness, but it's a very dark humor. It's a very um more deranged. I mean, okay, just an example. The board meeting with all the mob bosses and Jack after Jack has killed Carl Grissom, Jack Palance's character. And the one guy, the one mob boss, I kind of refer to him as uh, mob boss Jimmy Stewart, because he kind of talks like Jimmy Stewart. If you've ever seen or watched a movie or an interview with Jimmy Stewart in it, the guy sounds like and looks a little bit like Jimmy Stewart, but he has that high powered joy buzzer that pretty much fries the guy. And then all the other he bum rushes all the other mob bosses out, and he's sitting there talking to the corpse of the mob boss that he just electrocuted. That is a very dark bit of humor right there, but at the same time, it's very believable. You know, in another instance, he's talking very flip. He's in Vicky Vale's apartment, and we'll get to Vicky Vale here shortly. And he's talking about the death of the woman that he had been obsessing over, the Carl Grissom's girlfriend, which he had eyes on as well, and obviously had been having a relationship with. And he's like, 1 minute he's like, recently I had a loss in my life, Alicia, and just smashes the mask she had been wearing, and he's like, but you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Just one moment very deadpan and serious, the next minute very uneasy and black and very dark humor. And I honestly don't think any other actor except Nicholson could have pulled that off. That was working at the time. I don't think there were a whole lot of actors out there that could have pulled off that balance. Even as good as Robin Williams was in his prime, and he was damn good in his prime. I don't think Robin Williams would have been the right casting for the Joker in this. Yes, he's funny. I will not deny Robin Williams's comedic ability one iota, but he just would not have been the right fit for this.
Because Jack Nicholson brings a lot of like a balance between like like funny, dark, and also a bit like a bit of intimidation at most times. Like like you get to see him like you get to see that time like he like when like you said when he electrocutes like one of the mob boss, like he was killing him in it while he's smiling. He was killing him when he's smiling. Like yeah, you could probably laugh, and then you could probably like you could probably laugh, and
Cringe.
you could probably get a bit scary all the time. Yeah, or even cringe, or even cringe. But again, first time I watched that scene, I was like, God damn, this is kind of either funny or a bit scary. Yeah, because Jack Nicholson totally knows how to bring that kind of level for his interpretation of Joker.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, Jack Nicholson isn't the only actor in this movie that has any type of comedic ability. Because obviously Michael Keaton does as well. I mean, he's done some roles in his early career and in his late career as well, and everything that have had a comedic element to him. And the way he plays Bruce Wayne in this film and in Batman Returns, he does bring a degree of humor to the role. It's not like slapstick beat your knee that's so damn funny, but it's very subtle humor, and for the character it works. I mean, just as an example, when they're having the big fundraiser at Wayne Manor and they're having the casino night, and they're there in the main room and everything where they got all the gaming tables and so on, and Vicky Vale's in there and she's trying to track him down, and she introduces herself and she's like, "Do you know which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne?" And he kind of looks around. He's like, "Well, I'm not quite sure." And obviously, that's Bruce Wayne. That's Batman because we've seen the trailer and so on, and obviously because we've seen him in the suit, and we're like, "Oh yeah, that's Bruce Wayne. That's Bruce Wayne." And then later on, and everything, just like a scene or two later, they're in the armor room, and he reintroduces himself, and he's like, Vicky and Alexandra
Alexander
Knox, and
Dang.
yeah, they're looking at all of the suits of armor, and I think it's Knox that makes a comment, and she's like, "I wonder where he got this from. It's Japanese." "How would you know?" "I bought it in Japan." He's like, "You did, yeah?" "Oh, right. Hi, Bruce Wayne." And Vicky's like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, this time." Just, it's those little moments of humor that make him believable, that don't just make him the dark, brooding, industrious / crime fighter. And even if you look at Robert Wold as Alexander Knox and everything, I'm kind of sad that his character didn't return for Batman Returns. I really am, and everything, or even Batman Forever. I wouldn't want him to have been anywhere near Batman and Robin, but at least maybe see his character again in Batman Returns. That would have been nice, but for whatever reason, either they didn't invite him back or he decided to decline. So, but
I like him, to be honest. I kind of like him.
mhm. Well, he brings a different aspect to the film. He's that investigating journalist who's trying to get down to the brass tacks of who is the Batman, or if the Batman is real, and what kind of connection he has to the Gotham Police Department. And you have that great piece of it's semi comedic, but it's after the two criminals are taken off of the roof and they're blathering on, and Ox is just standing there shouting into his tape recorder, "Is there a 6-foot bat prowling the rooftops of Gotham? And is he on the police payroll? And what is he pulling down after taxes?" And it's little moments like that, and then you have him balanced out and everything, where with the more serious moments when he's talking to Vicky about what happened to Bruce in the alleyway with his parents, and he plays it pitch perfect. And it's not easy to find actors or actresses that can flip a switch like that, where 1 minute they're being very comedic and very snappy and very sometimes tongue in cheek, and the next minute they're playing a scene very straight or very serious. And Tim Burton got lucky in the casting for this movie, because as I said before you came in, Ferris, pretty much the cast he wanted, he got, and everything, because of his reputation, because he had done Beetlejuice. I think he had done a couple of the movies before he did Batman 89, and obviously when he went on to do Batman Returns. But Tim Burton had a good reputation in Hollywood amongst all the studios and so on.
Well, that's why his dark atmosphere makes him, kind of the perfect candidate to direct, 89. No, I think like his, I didn't even get to see Beetlejuice before, like whole Batman stuff, but I was familiar with the Beetlejuice animated series because again, that was like part of my childhood. I didn't know that was a movie, to be honest. Heck, I didn't even know like Ghostbusters, was a movie until I, get to see a VHS copy at Blockbuster back then. Rest in peace. So so I was so I didn't know, so when I get to like watch, when I get to watch like Beetlejuice after I've seen like Batman 89 and Batman Returns. So when looking at the atmosphere, like, okay, this is totally Tim Burton stuff, and like he really did bring this kind of this kind of production into a different kind of level with Batman '89, which
Mhm.
he created a really good gothic grim atmosphere. Yeah, and he really did honor the character the right way. I mean, there are some times, so like when you're adapting a character, like when you either want to focus on the story on the main character or on a character's journey, giving him a character arc. But then again, like in '89, it's solely focused more on the villains compared to to the heroes. Because again, like I felt like Batman '89 felt more like a Joker story compared to a Batman movie, because Batman was kind of mysterious. Like when I watched the whole movie, because you get to know more about Joker, because this is like his origin movie, because you see him like from a gangster and becoming the Joker. Like this, it's no wonder that Jack Nicholson gets the top billing on the cast. Like Jack Nicholson's name came on first, and then after that, Michael Keane goes on a second. Like it's no wonder like this movie's more about the villain compared to the main hero.
Well, here's the thing. For anyone who read a Batman comic, you pretty much know the origin of Batman, so you don't need to do a whole lot of origin story with Batman because it's pretty straightforward what happened to him. Now they do touch upon his backstory, but I honestly will say I think the screen time for Batman and the Joker is pretty even, honestly. And the other interesting thing is doing my research. The reason why this film feels so grounded and so gothic, it is a bit of Tim Burton's influence. I would say it's a lot of Tim Burton's influence, but it's also the set designer and the concept artist and everything. And there's one guy in particular named Anton First, who you look at pictures of him, he almost would have fit in the Batman's Rogues Gallery as a villain or anything. Not that he was necessarily a bad guy or an evil person, just his own personal appearance and everything, and how he kind of attired himself and so on. But he set the tone, he set the design for Gotham, and they were able to. They did not film Batman '89 in the States. They had to go to Pinewood Studios over in England. And at the time, there was nothing being filmed there. So they were pretty much able to have run of the entire studio, and they were able to use all their backlots and their inside studios and also and all their and inside sound stages and so on to really build out the set that they use and that they shot on for Batman. I mean, you look at the town square of or the city square of Gotham. They built that from the ground up or anything. Not obviously the exteriors more so than the interiors and so on. But when you have a great set designer and a great concept artist or several great concept artists, and then you have Tim Burton, you're going to have a stunning looking set. The same is true with Batman Returns. They didn't have Anton First for that one. They had Bo Welch, and I think who was also another very well known um, set designer and concept artist and everything as well. He's gone on to be a director on some less than stellar films, but that's another discussion for another time. But when you look at the design of Gotham as it evolved between Batman '89 and Batman Returns, a lot of the threads were similar, but they added elements. They pulled away. They took out some stuff that didn't quite work, or maybe to make room for a different design aesthetic, and it worked. Now, obviously, with the later Batman movies, in particular Forever and Batman and Robin, they really went maybe a touch or maybe way overboard. But you look at '89 and Returns, and there is a lot of similar threads because it's very industrialized, it's very grimy, it's very gritty, it feels very lived in. It does have that gothic architecture feel, particularly with Gotham Cathedral, which we see at the end of the film, obviously with Wayne Manor. Uh, with the Batcave, you have a very industrialized feel for that space. And if you look at the interiors of Wayne Manor itself, it has that sort of aristocratic feel to it, yet it feels very homey and very warm, except for the dining room. When Bruce invites Vicky over for dinner and they're sitting at opposite ends of that big long ass table, and she's like, "Do you eat in here a lot?" And he's like, "Actually, now that you think about it, I don't think I've ever eaten in this room before." And they end up in the kitchen or everything, having dinner with Alfred and talking with him. And I love, you know, Bruce says, I think she's like, Vicky says to Bruce, "This all this stuff in this house doesn't feel like you." And Bruce says to her, "Some of it very much is not me. Some of it is." And Vicky says, "That dining room is definitely not you." That right there is a very humanizing scene for the character of Bruce Wayne and everything, because that's our first long period of time with him.
Well, he's kind of mysterious at most ways, though, because like the way Michael Keaton portrayed Bruce Wayne, he's seems like a mysterious guy at most of the time. Like the only like that time, like you said, when he invites Vicky Vale to dinner, like you said, I don't think I've ever been in this room, and also like this stuff doesn't feel like you. Some of it is much me. So like when he's said that, like he's kind of like knows like how to hide, like he knows like how to hide pain in himself, because again the character of Bruce Wayne is tragic, but then like bringing Michael Keaton, like he kind of like have that pain really sealed up on it, on his face. Like you could like see like his expressions, like when he he confronts like Vicky, or maybe facing Vicky, like it's like he's acting like everything's fine, but again, like Vicky does not know like Bruce Wayne like secrets until like the very end, like by the end of the middle act, or by the end of the second act, like he finally knows like who he is. Like again, like I thought like Michael Keane was kind of like his Bruce Wayne sometimes is just mysterious, but as Batman, like he really nails that character. I mean, like sometimes Bruce Wayne, like he knows how to act like two different kind of people, because again, a good Batman has to have different kind of people. You got Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, Bruce Wayne the playboy, and then you got Bruce Wayne. There's sometimes you get Bruce Wayne, the college student, or the young Bruce Wayne, and then finally you got Batman, which is like four or five separate kind of characters. And I guess like for Michael Keaton, he's Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is like, to me, like when I watch in '89, it's kind of like the mysterious Bruce Wayne, but as Batman, like he kicks ass. He's he is really intimidating, like compare like the next incarnation and all that, but we'll get to that later. But I thought like he did okay, and I didn't know like back then, like his casting was kind of controversy, before before Ben Affleck, before Heath Ledger, when they were casted as characters in the Batman and stuff. But I didn't know that, like you said, he was he was a comedy actor. I didn't know like his casting was kind of controversial. But I do want to ask you this question: like you get to experience this movies in theaters back then, right? Yeah. So, like, what are your like? Were you one of those people who kind of complain about Keen's casting?
Well,
Were you one of
honestly,
those
I
people who
didn't get to
complain
see.
about the casting? Sorry.
Well, I didn't get to see either '89 or Batman Returns in theaters. I didn't see them until I got to watch them on home video. But you know,
Oh, okay.
once. No, it's okay, Ferris. I think it's an honest question. You didn't know. I mean, I am old enough. I could have seen these in theaters, but I never got around to it because at the time it just wasn't. It wasn't something I was like I like the character of Batman. I always have liked the character of Batman. Of all the DC comics, he was the one character that I read the most often of it, if any. Um, my introduction to Batman was, the Adam West series, the comics that I read, the animated series, Batman Forever. The first time I watched Batman 89 was actually on TV. And it was the same year that Batman Forever came out in theaters. One of my local channels, or anything, I mentioned this, I'll just mention it briefly. One of my local TV stations was showing Batman 89 on TV. And I was like, this feels familiar because I think I'd seen clips of it like on the news or something. And I heard the name Bruce Wayne, and I was like, oh, this is Batman. So I stuck around and I watched the rest of it, and I was like, damn, so this is how good this was. That was now I eventually did get to, because I came in like midway through the movie and everything. And this was, I think it was after, no, it was during the press conference for Harvey Dent. It was during his press conference with him and Commissioner Loeb and Commissioner Gordon, Mayor Loeb and Commissioner Gordon and all of them. And I watched it all the way through, and I was glued to the TV. Now I got to see it eventually on home video and VHS and everything when we got our first VCR, and obviously got it to Blockbuster and so on. But castings don't ever really bother me unless I think it's just completely out of left field. It's something that just does not fit or does not match. I'm willing. The thing you have to remember about when the casting for Batman as Michael Keaton as Batman came out, obviously there was no internet. There might have been discussion amongst friends and everything, but it wasn't like widespread. There weren't like TV interviews with newscasters talking to people on the street or whatever about Michael Keaton being cast as the Batman. Was there some uproar? Yeah, there was, but it wasn't as widespread as it would have been today. It wasn't as widespread as, say, with the casting of Heath Ledger or even Ben Affleck in the two roles that they played. Even when they did cast and everything, I talked about this or anything about, it's been a couple of years ago now when I did my review of the Dark Knight trilogy. Heath Ledger's casting as the Joker was never a big issue for me. Honestly, I was willing to, based on the design of his character and, Heath Ledger's ability as an actor, his casting never honestly bothered me. It was never a big, huge issue and everything. I was like, I'm never gonna go see this movie. I was like, no, I'll go check it out happily. And me and my buddy, when we got out of the theater after seeing The Dark Knight, we're like, that was damn good. And Heath Ledger was damn good. So the casting choices for Batman 89 and Batman Returns were never any type of problem for me, because I'll give a talented actor or actress a chance to either impress me or disappoint me before I say, hey, you stunk, or hey, you were great, or hey, you were good.
Yeah, so going to Michael Keaton, because he was a comedy actor, because I even like read like Kevin Smith's interview when he first thought of Michael Keaton as Batman. He said Mr. Mom is Batman. Like, so when I thought of like what's Mr. Mom, so I researched it. So I researched like, oh, okay, so this is like one of Michael Keaton's like early roles. So he was he was a comedian, so he was a comedy actor. So when he was casted as Batman, like, I didn't know, like, at the time, like, since there were no internet, a lot of like the Batman fans at the time sent like letters to the studio, and there were like 50,000 protest letters sent to the studio. And it's a good thing that Tim Burton kind of proved everybody wrong, that Michael Keaton has the ability to play a very complex character like Batman. I mean, that's a cool thing that he proved. everyone wrong, because there are times when comedic actors plays like very serious role, like that time, like we all know that, like for example Robin Williams, he started off in comedy. He was a stand-up comic and becoming a comedic actor, and then finally get into like a serious movie role, like that movie about photography. What's that movie about photography again? God, that Robin Williams movie about the
Eight,
photograph thing. That Do you
I
remember
think it
what that movie
was
is?
called. I know what you're talking about. I'm no, it's not email me. That's I can't remember the name of the movie off the top of my head, but actually, that was not
Something
Robin Williams' first.
something photo or something. Something 1 hour photo. Is that what is it called? 1 hour photo.
Yeah, I think it's called. Yeah, I think Zach got it, and Zach, hey bud. Yeah, that was. I think it's 1 hour photo. But honestly, that was not Robin Williams' first foray into a more dramatic role. The first film that comes to mind for me is, of course, the Dead Poets Society. That was actually and even Good Morning Vietnam. Now, both of those do have a comedic element to them to a degree, but those are both most definitely more serious roles or anything compared to what Williams had done before and after that. So, Zach, the links are in the chat if you want to use it. It's your call, not
So
mine.
yeah, as okay, so as I was saying though, yeah, Dead Point Society. Forgot
Mhm.
about that movie. That was a really good movie. Like I watched that movie in high school. It was one of my
Mhm.
teachers who introduced me to that film. I don't know if that was the first movie that Robin Williams got an Oscar nomination, or that movie like got an other kinds of category nomination. But I I like that. I really love that movie, and I think that was probably like Ethan Hawke's first movie role in Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken. And when I
I
saw Ethan
believe
Hawke in that
so.
movie, like god damn, he was so young.
Young, yes, he was. Well, Ethan Hawke had a role even younger than that, and it was called Explorers. It was him and River Phoenix and another young actor, where they play a trio of school kids who build their own spaceship, and they go out into outer space and they meet aliens. And one of the aliens is actually voiced by Howie Mandel. Um, the interesting thing with Robin Williams, when we'll get back to 89 here in a minute or in returns, Robin Williams, we know about his own personal struggles, obviously, because that's what caused him to take his life, unfortunately. Robin Williams, he did a lot of different roles in his career. He obviously won an Oscar for his role in Good Will Hunting, which was a very was a far departure from what he had normally done in his career before then, and even a little bit afterwards. I honestly don't think Robin Williams would have been the right fit for the character of the Joker. Could he have maybe would he have maybe been a good fit for the more comedic aspect? Yes. But I don't think Robin Williams at that particular time in his career would have been the right fit as the Joker. And not even necessarily as the Riddler. He just, as much as I like Robin Williams, some kings are best left not done, and I think Jack Nicholson being cast as a Joker instead of Robin Williams was the proper casting here. Because if you and this is something that neither actor necessarily can control, but if you listen to Robin Williams' voice and the tone and the timbre of his voice, and you compare that to Jack Nicholson's voice and everything, the way he speaks, the tone, the pitch, the timbre, all of that stuff. Robin Williams delivering a line like winged freaks winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me. I honestly don't think Williams could have delivered that line as well as Jack Nicholson did, or even the line I've got here as a little bit of a joke. Dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Nicholson delivered that line perfectly. I don't think Robin Williams honestly could. That's not saying anything for his ability as an actor to any degree, one way or another, but I don't think he would have been the right fit.
Well, maybe in an alternate universe, like maybe Robin Williams could play Joker if if the material is, really fits his, his acting and all that stuff. But, since the script, is written for 89 script is totally written for Jack Nicholson, and and the way he deliver, his performance as the Joker, really puts a good balance between the way he portrayed as Jack Napier, and then when he becomes the Joker. And yeah, and those two different kind of characters. Yeah, those two different kind of characters from Jack, to Jack to Joker. Like he really nailed it. I think the script that was written for this movie is really meant for Jack Nicholson. Even though I would have loved to see like other actors portray, that were considered for the Joker portrayed like maybe different Batman villains. And like you mentioned before, like Robin Williams as the Riddler, I thought that was a pretty good, I thought that was a really good casting idea. I thought to me it sounds really ambitious, unless like if they given like a more complex, more deep kind of character for the Riddler, because like the Riddler in the comics was, he didn't really have that much of an identity like back then, but like Riddler like right now, like the new interpretation like by Paul Dano in the Batman, it's becoming more complex compared to like like the comics in the early days, and to Jim Carrey, which is he brings his own anarchy or mannerism into his own role in Forever. But Paul Dano, it was a different whole level. I think like every character through the years have their own kind of interpretation, and that's kind of like the way like either the writers or the director wanted to adapt the character. But I thought you said about Robin Williams as the Riddler. I thought that was actually really good casting, and I thought that would have been really cool to see him in that role. I thought it would have been perfect. I mean, that's to me personally okay.
No, I get you. Well, speaking of a guy who knows a great deal about character development, and a character himself, a good friend of mine and of the channel, a fellow ambassador, give a warm welcome to Mr. Zach Leary.
Thank
you. What up, Zach?
Oh, so you can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm coming in just fine, bud.
Okay, that profile picture is actually Castro, dude.
Oh, from Dark Space. Okay, yep. Interesting.
So anyway, 1 hour photo is badass. I haven't heard that name in a long time. That's a great fucking movie, man.
I've never seen it.
That's probably like the only movie that Robin Williams kind of scared the shit out of me every time.
Yeah, he was creepy. So where are we at with this one?
We're kind of like talking about the whole Joker, Joker character and the whole casting thing. I mean, I did mention before that before Jack was casted, I mean, Robin Williams was, considered. Then Brad Dourif, who played Chucky, and I forgot to mention that Willem Dafoe also auditioned for both Batman and Joker. I mean, Willem Dafoe is kind of like everyone's fan casting by now.
Wow. Well, Willem would have been good too. If not Jack, he's probably the next best thing. But Jack gave the movie a certain stamp of approval and took it from being the comic movie genre, which at the time was a difficult milieu, and brought it into being a movie, a film. Gave it that I don't know, that appeal
legitimacy.
Exactly. If you look, Batman '89 took 10 years to make. It had been a script. It had passed through a bunch of different
Yeah.
hands, and the dude who ended up making it happen was a guy who invented the modern day comic book philosophy college course and taught the first one in the country.
Yep.
Dude got Stan Lee to join forces with him, and Stan the Man was involved, and that's the dude who made this thing happen. He met this, I believe it was an Italian investor, and they got that dude interested, and that's how it all happened.
The guy's name was John Gruber, and he had a studio called Casablanca Studios. It was John Gruber and another guy by the last name of Bogart. I don't know if it's any relation to Humphrey Bogart or not, but yeah.
Isn't that like the producer's name? John Peters and Goober Peter, I think that's his name.
Yeah, I think it is.
No.
The comic book guy, I think. That sounds right. Is that who you're talking about?
Oh, John Peters and Peter Goober, they were the producers of '89. I think the one comic book guy who was involved, I think, is Michael Oslin, I think. Michael Uslin. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Michael Uslin was actually the guy that taught the class at I think it was at IU or another university here in my home state. And when I found that, I was like, oh, interesting. No, the name of the producer was Peter Gruber. I think the other producer was John Bogart. Now, I know the last names are accurate. Gruber and Bogart are for sure, but the first names I'm a little iffy on. But that's honestly that's a irrelevant detail, to be honest. But yeah, I came to discover the same thing you.
I recommend your audience take a look at the Batman '89 documentary, which is where you can find all this great shit. Which is where I got all this information. Oh my God!
I did too. Shadow of the Bat. Shadow of the Batman. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got Nicholson to sit down and do
it's on the
talk to anybody. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about Nicholson, he was at a screening or something, and he was talking with Jack Valenti. And Valenti was saying what's going to be the top and bottom numbers for Batman, and I think it was actually at the Oscars or something, and he gone to take a leak or something, and Nicholson told Valenti, he's like, this movie doesn't have a top number, it doesn't have a bottom, it's gonna blow the roof off of things. And by the end of the Oscars, everybody and their mother was talking about it, and he's like, that was just my little bit of guerrilla publicity. You just see the grin on Nicholson's face, and it's a hell of a thing, because he obviously had a lot of stake in this movie himself. He said, I put money on this. He's like, I put money on this movie and everything to get it made. So I just have as much of a stake in its success or its failure as anybody did. The movie itself and everything, the story that's told is deeply fascinating, because it is a benchmark film. The only other successful superhero movie before Batman '89, obviously, was Richard Donner's Superman. That movie took the first big step. Batman '89 took that step and elevated it further still. Because even after the success of Superman, and after the disaster that was Superman 3 and Superman 4, which granted came out after Batman. No, came out before Batman '89. Superhero movies were a bit on the ropes, considering those two lackluster sequels. Batman '89 had a lot riding on it, and if it had flopped, a lot of people were going to lose money. A lot of people were going to probably lose their job, and a lot of people were just not going to be able to go any further with their careers because this was going to be a huge. Oh, right, you were in that Batman film that flopped. I think we'll go with somebody else.
Well, all the pieces came together. You know, you have the right writing, you have the right cast, the right filmmaker, the right soundtrack. It was a perfect storm. The right era.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Not
for
to
me,
mention Danny Elfman.
oh, phenomenal. Yeah, he's great and very
Yeah.
odd dude.
Well,
His interview.
well, you know he
He looks
is.
like a
Yeah.
character, doesn't he?
Well, him and the one I was talking about was with Ferris about this before he came in, Zach. The concept artist and the set designer Anton First or First, I can't. I think that First is how his last name is pronounced. You look at pictures of him, and they show pictures of him and everything in the documentary, and he does look like he would belong in Batman's Rogues Gallery, honestly. But you know, if 89 had failed, we would have not gotten another Batman movie, and much less, I don't think we would have gotten another superhero movie. Maybe until I'll agree. I don't think if Batman 89 had failed, or I believe if Batman 89 had failed, that we would have gotten another serious superhero movie maybe ever.
I don't know about ever, but you're right. It would have been a serious setback because art, of course, breeds
Yeah.
art. So without Burton, we probably wouldn't have Nolan.
Well, we wouldn't gotten the animated series
That's true,
too,
and
which
I
is
don't think
the influence.
Well, the animated series was more influenced by the movie than vice versa, Ferris, because you have to remember the animated series came out after 89. It did not come out concurrent, and it didn't come out before. The animated series came out in like 92 or 93. Batman 89 obviously came out in 89. Batman Returns came out in 92, I believe, like 2 or 3 years after. So the animated series was influenced more so by the movie. Granted, they didn't do complete copies of everything like character design, background design, and so on from that film. They took various elements and so on, and they used different influences to create the animated series. But the animated series was more influenced by the films than the other way around. And honestly, 89, I think, deserves to be considered as one of those films that transcends its genre, honestly. And there's only a handful of superhero movies or comic book movies that I would say do that. 89 is one of them. Superman, the very first Superman. Yeah, sure, Zach. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, just to jump off your point there is, it feels like a real movie, and you can tell me if you disagree or if you have a different take. The reason to me it feels like a real movie is because it's not a bunch of action set pieces. It's got legitimate character development. It's got legitimate subplots. And the thing is, you're building up the characters throughout the film. Like even, oh God, Vicky and Bruce together in all these scenes.
Vicky Vale and Alexander Knox.
Yeah, well, Vicky and Bruce together is really interesting because there is a sense of intrigue, mystery between them. You're seeing almost through that character's eyes, the Vicky character, a look into we're getting the pedestrian look into the underground, which makes it intriguing. But you've got these, like, even the slow moments in the soundtrack where it's got that little violin going, and it builds suspense, it builds
Mhm.
intrigue. You've got a vibe to the film, and it's not just action. It's not a stupid movie.
Well, the other thing that they were really pushing against, and Ferris, you can, I think I'll definitely have you jump in on this one. They were definitely having to combat the influence of the Adam West series, both the series and the film that was done, and everything with Adam West and Burt Ward and the rest of the cast of villains and
Which
everything from.
let, let me say real quick, I hated those until I realized it was a comedy.
Yes, it was meant to be a comedy. Um, Ferris, question: did you ever watch the Adam West series or the film? Either way, or either one.
Well, I first found out about the Adam West show, like, when there was internet. When I found out, like, there was a Batman movie, like, before '89, which is '66. So there
Mm-hmm.
was a time where I get to see a rerun once, and my first impression of like the '66 show was like, this is like way different than '89, and what came out like like after. So my first impression, like, okay, this is probably like a different era. So yeah, so that was like my first impression. It's a different era, and it's a different kind of atmosphere. Not like what I grew up with the '89 the '89 movie, or Forever, or the Nolan trilogy, etc. So yeah, it is a different era, and it's a different era, and it's a different kind of genre. It wasn't meant to take so seriously. I mean, it was, it's for its time. That's my
Yeah.
point.
Well, it's funny. I thought the whole thing was funny. There's nothing serious about the Adam West portrayal at
No.
all. At all.
No.
It's like a cartoon. It's funny. Like I didn't understand it for years and years and years until one day, and I'm not a big pothead, guys. I don't smoke at all now, but back in the day, I sparked up a joint and watched it and laughed and was just howling, dying, laughing. It's a comedy. That's what it is.
It is. Yeah, and it's meant to be. Well, and here's the interesting thing. Um, in my research, I discovered something very interesting. There was a book that was published in, I think, like the 1950s, called "The Poisoning of Innocence" by a guy named Wortham, and in that he espoused this idea that comic books were one of the contributors to juvenile delinquency and, well, quite frankly, a whole lot of hogwash. And unfortunately, because there was a whole lot of advocacy on the opposite side of things to say, hey, no, it isn't comic books that are contributing to juvenile delinquency. Maybe these kids just aren't growing up in a good environment. And unfortunately, a lot of the comic book lines that were going on at the time had to um, change the tone and art style and so on of their comic books to from more serious to a lot more comedic. And unfortunately, Zach, you're not wrong, and you could say that out loud here. I won't censor you um, at all. Trust me. But it's it was because of that characters like the Batman became less serious and more grounded and more comedic and goofy. Nah, I can't say I disagree with that one either, Zach. So, but honestly, it
That was a
was
mutt.
it
God, what is
was a
wrong with
shame
people?
about what.
What is wrong with people trying to
Well, you have
ruin
to look at the
somebody else?
time period in which this. Yeah, Zach, you're not wrong. And well, as Zach said, this Wortham guy, this Dr. Wortham, was as Zach categorized it, and I'll agree with this categorization. He was the proto SJW. He really was. We have to protect the children. The children are fine. Leave them be. Let their parents deal with them on their own. They don't need your damn stupid ass book, which has been, I think, pretty much debunked at this point. But it took a long time for comic books to get back to their more grounded roots, and particularly with the Batman. It wasn't until like the 70s and going into the 80s when Frank Miller came on board, and you had a bunch of other writers and artists and everything come on board the different Batman comic books, and really revitalize and reground and really revitalize the more hard edged, less comedic version of the Batman that Bob Kane and Bill Finger had originally created. You know,
Yeah, with
they
the
had
joke
several.
stabbing,
They had an interview. Hmm?
you had people killed. The Joker was stabbing people. I think in one of the first issues. I don't think.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if their initial take was as kind of um, visually dark, but it was dark in terms of the storytelling and the context of what it was. Um,
yeah, definitely.
but in terms of Miller, that guy is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of Batman. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, he is. Well, I mean, he's right there next to Bob Kane, obviously, and Bill Finger, and I would say Tim Burton.
Oh,
I would even maybe, depending on how his trilogy turns out, I would put Tim Miller up there, and I would definitely put Christopher Nolan on the Mount Rushmore of Batman influential figures. Definitely. But you know, the funny thing is, or not the funny thing, but the interesting thing is, they had some interviews both with Bob Kane and everything. They actually had the short and everything where he was walking around the set there at Pinewood Studios in England, and he was talking about how impressed he was with how they had built this new Gotham and how faithful they were to his original vision, and his wife and everything. Because obviously the way she talked about him, it was in the past tense. He had already passed on. She had remarked on when they had drove up to the premiere at I think it was the Westwood Studios in Hollywood for the premiere and everything in June of '89. And it's funny, we're reviewing this movie or these movies in June of 2023, and they came out in June of '89 and '92, uh, respectively. But she remarked or anything, he had tears in his eyes and he started to get choked up, and she was like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "All these people are here because of something I made." And he's like, they're cheering for this, or cheering for this character. And you can really see it in her eyes how much it meant to her husband and to her and everything, that people really latched on to what he had created and what it had been turned into. And it really goes to show that the time and the effort that a creative mind like Bob Kane or anybody, that they are human and that they just want to be able to make their art and for people to appreciate it and be inspired or be entertained by it.
yeah. Well, he was a character, man. He showed up at the premiere with a white cape. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they showed footage of that. I do remember. Yeah. So, but you know, getting a little bit more back into the movie. You know, once Bruce discovers that Jake Napier is actually the man who murdered his parents, you notice a change in his demeanor, and especially in the scene where they're at Vicky's apartment and the Joker and his goons are there. Well, Bruce shows up first, and he's trying to tell her he's Batman, and she keeps rambling on, and he keeps cutting him off, and she's like, and he kind of grabs her by the shoulders, sits her down. He's like, "You're a really nice girl, and I really like you. But for just a minute, shut up." I and she does, and it's you know, Joker comes in, and him and Bruce are talking back and forth, and then there's that great line and everything. You want to get nuts? Okay, let's get nuts. And then it
Best meme
clicked.
on the internet.
Yes, yes, it is. And he holds up the fireplace poker, And that's when it clicks. Well, first he realizes that the Joker is Jack Napier, but then he realizes that Jack Napier was the man that murdered his parents. And his behavior completely changed from that time on.
Well,
That's
Napier,
absolutely what it is. Go ahead,
I
Zach.
find Napier to be pretty compelling too. It's really the only time we've seen the Joker in terms of being a gangster mafia type guy. And they played right into the mafia thing. It wasn't just a criminal; it was more old school mafioso. With who was the Grissom? No, not Grissom. Who's the guy
Jack
who killed?
Palance. Charles
Grissom.
Grissom. Played by
Okay.
Jack Palance.
Yeah, well, that's a great scene too. He knows he's a dead man. He's like, don't even bother. Don't bother. Reaching for the whiskey. No, he's reaching for the pistol. No, Napier is compelling. He's just as creepy as the Joker. You see the underlying creepy nature of who this guy is, because you get a good little 15, 20 minutes with this guy where he's just a fucking creep and he's a weirdo. Especially that scene between him and Fat Boy in the alleyway, where what's that dude's name? I forget. The corrupt cop.
The guy that plays the young Jack Napier. Oh, Eckhart.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Eckhart.
Detective Eckhart.
That
Oh,
scene
Lieutenant Eckhart.
You can tell Eckhart is fucking afraid of him. Eckhart is afraid of him. Where Jack is giving off this crazy, evil, like almost inhuman creature type vibes, slithering around. He's a creepy motherfucker before he becomes a Joker. So it's fun. Napier. Yeah. No, well, did you guys bring up the girlfriend yet? His Harley Quinn?
Oh, no, it's not Harley, but it's Alicia. I think it's played by Jerry Hall, which was a one-time squeeze.
The Mobs' daughter, I think. Is it the Mobs' daughter?
His daughter is his girl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you set me up over a woman. That's
yeah. I remember that line when he killed the boss.
Well, it's creepy what he does with her too, because it's so the character is so unique, where he's got that artist thing to him. He's such a megalomaniac, unlike some of the other ones, where Heath Ledger didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck. This guy wants to be on the newspaper. He wants people to know his name.
What do you want? My face on $1 bill.
Well, I'll just say this though, because since like Heath Ledger was playing the more anarchist Joker, and the thing that kind of like when we talk about the casting of Michael Keaton, as Batman, he was comedic, but he was a comedy actor. But when it comes to Heath Ledger, not to compare to Jack Nicholson, okay, because we already know that the guy's always been typecast as like crazy characters, and like Ambassador said, he was like giving like the crazy performance in that film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then The Shining, and then when it comes to Heath Ledger, the guy, he's not from the States. I think he's a stage actor before he becomes like an actor. But again, he was, I grew up with his movies, to be honest, okay? Because again, I love 10 Things I Hate About You. I love A Knight's Tale, and there's that movie that he played with Mel Gibson. That was that war movie that he put. Yes, The Patriot. Thank you, Ambassador. Yeah, he's always been like that. He's always been like that pretty boy that that you wanna get to hang out or maybe go on a date with back then. But honestly, I didn't know that he was I didn't know that the one thing that got his casting was very controversial because of a one movie that I didn't even know he played. Okay. Like when he was casted as a Joker, everyone always think about the gay cowboy, and I was so confused. Like, gay cowboy? Like, what are these people talking about? Like, did I miss something? And first off, I didn't watch Yeah, exactly. I didn't even watch Brokeback Mountain. Okay, I was too young for that movie, and it wasn't until my second year of college, my high school friend called me, "Hey, you want to go watch this movie, Brokeback Mountain? Like, what's it about?" So I watched it, and Heath Ledger was there. Like, okay, so now I get why the casting was controversial. Brokeback Mountain, but again, he proved everyone wrong, and he deserved that Oscar.
Absolutely, he did. I agree. Well, getting into casting it, we can kind of move away from '89 and everything, and we can come back to it.
Let's give a score.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Can we give a score?
I think the score on Batman '89 is pretty easy. It's a 10.
Okay.
It's 10 out of 10. Score need be posted. Ferris, your score?
Ferris,
Oh, my score? I would say probably 8.5 out of 10.
I'm pretty close to you. I'd give it an 8.7.
Burn the heretic!
8.7.
Pair of heretics! Burn them! Burn them all!
One more thing.
Burn you
At
down.
the wall here is the gothic tone of the film is so unique and gorgeous, and I love it. And the color palette is unique, and the buildings, like you said, the buildings, without that, you don't have a film. The character of Gotham is so unique, it's just a bad motherfucker of a film. So I'll end my thoughts there.
Okay.
Well, '89's Gotham is definitely the definitive Gotham, to me.
Batman, Gotham and Batman Returns, I think was pretty damn good too, and we'll get into that we can go and get into that right now. Talking about interesting casting choices for a film. The character of both the Penguin and Catwoman, there was a lot of clamoring for these two roles, especially Catwoman, because originally they had cast, I think it was Anne Bancroft as Catwoman for Batman Returns.
Annette Bening, I think.
Returns. No, Annette, you're right. And Annette Bening. I got the initials wrong. Annette Bening.
She was Marvel, right?
And she came in. Annette Bening.
I mean, she was Marvel in
no, she was the Supreme. Well, she was.
Yeah,
she was also the Supreme Intelligence
Captain Marvel.
But yeah, but Annette Bening was originally going to be Catwoman, and then when she gave the call, and she's like, "Guys, I can't. I'm pregnant." They're like, "Okay, crap. What are we gonna do?" And then every female actress between the ages of, I think it was like 29 and 45, came out of the woodwork. One story they tell was Sean Young, who had just finished, or was just a few years removed from David Fincher's Dune. She came in fully dressed as Catwoman into it was the office that Tim Burton and another guy were in. I can't remember who now, off the top of my head. And she jumped up on the couch and she went, "I'm Catwoman." And they're like, "Okay, we'll get back to you." And then
over there.
Ultimately, they settled on Michelle Pfeiffer, and okay, I'll say it. I'll even say it now. Yes, I love my wife, obviously. But okay, I'll say this back then. A more provocative and very sultry Catwoman we had not seen up until then, even on the Adam West series. With all due respect to Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt, Catwoman was one of the sex symbols of the 90s. I mean, you had Claudia Schiffer, you had you had Pamela Anderson, and right smack dab in the middle, you had Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
What about Cindy Crawford?
Yeah, Cindy Crawford. Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking of somebody that can actually act. I don't count that movie that she was in with one of the Baldwin brothers. Fair Game, I think it was called. She wasn't even topless. Like, what the hell? There's somebody's going to clip out. Ambassador didn't like it that Cindy Crawford wasn't topless in her movie. Yeah, she's Cindy Crawford. Why the hell not? Anyway, besides me being a massive perv like all boys were in the 90s, when I was a teen in the 90s, obviously, um, her performance, aside from the costume and some of her mannerisms as Catwoman, she did a very good. Honestly, I think she brought the part to life in a very profound way, because this is a woman who had pretty much been a doormat all her life. And I think that is something that resonates not just with women, but men in some instances as well. Granted, we don't go making vinyl cat suits. Well,
she was
back
just
then
pathetic.
we didn't. Back then we didn't.
She was
Nowadays,
a human being. It's beyond her being down on her luck. She was pathetic. Where it's like, even
she
when she shows
was.
up and she shows up at her apartment and she's like, honey, I'm home.
Oh,
Oh, that's
all
right, I'm
right.
not married.
Married.
It's like, get a fucking, oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's embarrassing.
it is. But honestly, Michelle Pfeiffer's casting, I think, was perfect, and I honestly wish she had gotten her own standalone movie, because I think there was a story there that could have been told. But unfortunately, we got what we got in the terms of that abominable
Don't
dreck
say
known
it.
as
Don't say that.
abominable dreck,
No.
that abominable dreck train crash, dumpster fire, nuclear meltdown, starring Halle Berry. I won't even say the name of the movie. That's all I'll say.
She was okay as Storm, but god damn it, why Catwoman?
She
Oh
was
god, no
good.
wonder she deserved that Razzie for Catwoman.
Do you guys remember the plot of that movie?
No. I think
idea
it was.
I didn't even get to watch that movie in theater. Thank God.
I did. Okay. Okay. The only.
Okay.
What is it, Zach?
Let me give you a quick refresher. So Sigourney Weaver is playing your bad guy, right?
No, she isn't. It was Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone. Okay. So Sharon Stone's evil plan was, and I'm not kidding, selling poisonous healthcare products like lotion and
cosmetics.
Cosmetics. That was your bad guy. I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah,
it really
I know.
is.
And they had I think they had the guy who played the Merovingian in that as well. As one of the other villains.
People throw out the term misogynist all the time, but your bad guy in your female action hero movie is selling cosmetics that turn you poison. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But at least, with Batman Returns, at least until we got Zoe Kravitz and the Batman with Robert Pattinson, we had a good Catwoman to hold us over until last year. Thankfully.
Anne Hathaway was not good. I hate to say it, but I did not find her to be all that compelling.
Fair enough. Did you say Zoe Kravitz or Halle Berry?
Anne Hathaway from The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, Anne Hathaway. Yeah, I completely forgot about her. And I actually like Anne Hathaway as an actress. And I completely forgot about her as Catwoman.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, she's trying to be like the typical cat burglar, to be honest. I'm sorry. Anne Hathaway was trying to be like the year one, Catwoman, the typical cat burglar, because Michelle Pfeiffer is nothing like, any of the comics. It's just like Tim Burton's, mine of interpretation, of his own interpretation of Catwoman, to be honest. I mean, like Michelle Pfeiffer, she's just perfect, like you said, Ambassador. She's just perfect, but it's not like the Catwoman from the comics or animated series that we know.
No. Although they did borrow some of the more sultry aspects of that Catwoman performance for the animated series, but they couldn't go too overboard with it because obviously it was a cartoon meant for kids. So, and that's understandable. Granted, we as teenagers and adults still watch the damn show, and well, justifiably so. It's a great show. But the other interesting casting was, of course, the Penguin, and we'll get to the other one too, Zach. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about our boy. Don't worry. Danny DeVito as the Penguin.
Exactly.
I mentioned this.
About?
We'll get to it. Don't worry.
Sorry, that was a real bad one.
I talked about this before the both of you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was actually pretty good. That was pretty good, buddy. That was pretty good. But I was talking about this before you two got in here. Before anybody really got in here, because beside the point. Up until I watched Batman Returns again the other day for this, I didn't really care for Danny DeVito's portrayal of the Penguin. But then I started to realize I had to a degree, to a very distant degree, but to a degree, I had something in common with the Penguin and how he was developed and how he was portrayed in the movie. We open with Batman Returns going to the Cobblepot estate. And of course, to Paul Rubens, well known for his part as Pee Wee Herman, playing for heaven's sakes, Esther and Harold, I think were the parents' names, playing Oswald's father. And they realize they have given birth to a monster rather than a man. And they take him in his very heavily secured bassinet for a walk out at night in Gotham Park. And they dump his bassinet over a bridge, a little walking bridge, and abandoned him. Now, where does the link between myself and this character come in? I was not necessarily abandoned, but my great not seeing anything about the other movie theater. Oh, Lord, Zach. Okay. But I was not necessarily abandoned by my biological parents. They gave me up for adoption, and I was very fortunate to have the family that I have now. And I've had ever since. But I could understand on a level the resentment that he felt because I was given up. That my parents, because they did not feel they were cut out to be parents, gave me to someone else. And I felt that very strongly. And I was like, okay, I can understand this character a little bit better now than I could before. And seeing his performance in total, I have come to have a deeper appreciation for Danny DeVito's portrayal of the Penguin compared to the other portrayals I've seen in my past. And, just a few years ago with Colin Farrell as the Penguin in the Batman. So, but those are just my thoughts. Ferris, Zach, your thoughts on Danny DeVito as the Penguin?
I'll go first. To be honest, though, the casting of Danny DeVito as Penguin are really perfect. I don't think I would change a thing about about the whole casting thing. Even Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, she was even perfect. I didn't even want to change things about her, even though like her interpretation is so different in the comics. Her take was so, how do I say this? She's kind of got into this metahuman aspect that kind of get into Tim Burton's influence. I mean, it's not like the typical athletic cat burglar and stuff. But for Penguin, I love his character. But the only thing that kind of bugs me about bugs me about his is his motivation. To be honest, his backstory very tragic, and the way that his parents throw him out into the river, and he was later raised by penguins. That was so like Tim. I don't know. I think it's probably like Tim Burton level up his best, because again, Batman Returns felt more like a Tim Burton movie compared to like Batman '89, because Batman '89 had a lot of influence from the producers, from the studios, yeah, and a bit of Tim Burton too. Even the movie had a soundtrack from Prince, which again, there's no soundtrack in Batman Returns, but again, a lot of Danny Elfman scores is so gothic, like it could really get into your ears, and it really pumps your adrenaline and your heart out. But when it comes to okay, going back to Danny DeVito as Penguin, I love his performance, but the thing that really bugs me is his motivation and his character. I felt like his character is kind of like everywhere in the place. And what I meant by that is that this though, so he was first like came out of the sewer, saving, he came out of the sewer saving the mayor's, baby. Okay, he came out saving the mayor's baby, and he said that the one thing that he wants to do is to find his parents. Okay, and the second thing, like after he shows himself into the public, the thing that bothers me is when that scene where he went to the Hall of Records to find the name of his parents, and apparently they're showing him listing off every Gotham's firstborn sons, and before that, like Bruce Wayne in his Batcave even sees a news that I don't know if you remember this, because there was a scene where Bruce Wayne sees the newspaper about about the Red Triangle Circus, kidnapping children or missing children, and one of the news says, children that were never found. When I thought to myself, like, holy mommy fucking shit, I think Penguin in this movie is kind of a straight up child murderer, if you ask me. Like, if you want him like to make like a sympathetic character, why do you introduce him like as a baby killer or a child murderer? Like that stuff like that didn't really make sense to me. And another thing that bothers me was his plan at the very end, like when he was like betrayed by the public. And the thing that he does next, by the end of the movie, you remember like he was planning to kidnap every Gotham's firstborn son, right? Remember? Yeah, you remember that plot. So that part of the movie right there, kind of bugs me. Like, okay, like if he's gonna kidnap children and his plan failed, then after that he's gonna make like his army of penguins blasting off Gotham. Why isn't that his plan A? That kind of bugs me. Like, why did if he was betrayed by the public, why didn't he just send his army of penguins to like attack Gotham instead of kidnapping every Gotham's firstborn son? That stuff right there, does not make sense. I don't care like how very sympathetic like Danny Elfman's score or the Penguin's character is, but then again, like his motivation still, does not make sense to me. It also kind of bothers me about the fact when he like, how the hell did he get the Batmobile blueprints? That's kind of a plot hole right there. Like out of all the villains in Gotham, like how do you get Gotham's how do you? Was that Zach?
Hey, Ferris.
Laying out 15,000 points.
Was that 50,000 points?
No, you're going too much at once. Let's take them point by point.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I'm just saying that the motivation of the Penguin kind of like, it's kind of like everywhere place. Because to be honest, though, I rather prefer Max Shrek as the villain. To be honest, I think he's like the more puppet master compared to Penguin. Just my opinion, okay.
Well, let's take them point by point. I have a response to most of the ones you brought up. So if you look, you'll find that Penguin got the names before he was found out, which means that was probably always his intention. So
Yes,
number
Always
one,
exactly.
that was always his intention. He was always evil. He was always built on revenge. The stuff with the public was, at least in my opinion, and you could be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just giving you my perspective. Is
Okay.
the thing with the public was always a sham. It was bullshit designed for him to get more power. You know, he was. But I think he got caught up in the charade and bought into his own performance. Is kind of what happened with him. Because you see him go back down and he goes, "I'm not a human being. I'm an animal." So that's reverting back to who he was before he started playing along and people actually started buying into it. So he bought into his own bullshit, in my opinion. But
Well,
he got this for him. And the Batmobile one, you could say he got it from the sewer. Or he got it from Max. Who knows?
well, okay, and let's dig a little bit deeper into each one of those points. Zach, I agree with you wholeheartedly. His intention was to always go after the firstborn of Gotham because he felt slighted himself, and that was going to be his revenge on Gotham City. The other part and everything was more of him being more ingratiated to the community or to the public, further still than he had already been, was more of Max Schreck's uh, influence and so on, and trying to have a recall election for the mayor because the mayor and Bruce Wayne were stopping him from building that power plant that was going to be essentially a power siphon or anything on Gotham City.
Yeah.
And he wanted
Which is why
the
he wanted Penguin as mayor.
yeah, exactly, because he could pull the Penguin strings easier than he could the current sitting mayors, and having Bruce Wayne in the way as well and everything, kill two birds with one stone essentially. You have a puppet mayor or anything that will do whatever you tell him, just as long as you give him a fresh fish, and then Bruce Wayne will you do with Bruce Wayne whatever way you want to. Um, it isn't until Bruce Wayne gets that recording off of the hijacking of the Batmobile where the Penguin says, "I played the city like a harp from hell," and he just plays it on a
I love
repeat
that
during that
line.
press conference. And he plays it on a repeat during that press conference. And the people of Gotham are like, "Well, screw you." And he puts up his umbrella and he gives that line. He's like, "Who is it? Why is it that they always bring tomatoes and rotten fruit to these damn things?" Or something to that effect.
That's
Like,
always been, that's kind of like my question too. Like, yeah, why do people bring tomatoes and veggies in public? That's kind of like a
who
good
knows?
question too. It's a funny question.
I think there's truth,
It,
though, that he bought into his own nonsense to a degree.
yeah, oh, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree because, well, here's the thing. He was a very,
But,
he to a
yeah,
degree
I'm
was a very
curious.
good schemer and a manipulator.
Go ahead, Ned.
Okay. He was a very good schemer and a manipulator of his own right, but he himself got played by Shrek even more so. I think, to be honest, to be perfectly honest. And honestly, if I was going to think of a crooked industrialist in Gotham City, yeah, Christopher Walken. You can't go wrong with casting Christopher Walken. I mean, November cannot get here soon enough for Dune Part 2, where we finally get to see Christopher Walken as the Pasha Emperor Shaddam IV. I may
Ferris's best
honestly.
was the Batmobile schematics. That one is a little bit harder to answer.
It
I don't.
is.
I'm
Well,
not saying Ferris is wrong. There's probably some. I would agree to a certain degree with some of it, but I think the overall thing is that the Penguin's intention was always an evil one. So
oh, yeah.
anything
Most definitely.
was like performative.
Yeah, that's always been like sorry, Ambassador. That's always been sometimes my problem about the character of the Penguin. Like motivation, is kind of like everywhere on the place. Yeah, I mean, you could have done it better because when it comes to villain, I mean, Catwoman and Max Shrek are kind of like my favorite because they played their characters very well, and because Max Shrek kind of remind me of that one Batman villain in the animated series, which is Roland Daggett, to be honest, because sometimes the villain works, 9 to 5. They don't need to put on like a super villain suit or or a super suit or anything. I mean, it just goes walking, in broad daylight, pulling strings or anything. That's why I think like Christopher Walken, as Max Shrek is kind of like my favorite villain in the whole movie.
A dude who leaves his son behind. Go, Dad, go. What kind of a father leaves the son there and just takes off? He was a real slime ball.
Seriously, the guy who played the son, the guy who played the son really does a good Christopher Walken impression. Dad, go save yourself.
He really
I laughed
does.
my ass off.
He really does.
Oh, fun
Well,
fact.
here's the interesting
that
thing
act-
because
Sorry, don't mind if I cut in. The fun fact: that guy was in Street Fighter, by the way. That guy was in Street Fighter. I forgot what character they played, but he also played the Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake in 2003. I think it was a wrestler or something. I forgot what's his name.
R. Lee Ermey, dude. I actually like those movies. Sheriff Hoyt.
What was that movie?
The one you just mentioned, the remake.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, the one in 2003.
R. Lee Ermey, the dude from
Yeah.
Full Metal Jacket, plays the sheriff. That's one of his best parts, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I was talking about the guy who played Max Shrek's son. He was also in that Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake as the villain, of course.
The same film. I'm just saying I like
Yeah.
that film.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. But does anybody watch Street Fighter in the 1994 Street Fighter? He was that guy with the
film?
beard, the film. He was in that movie too. Wow, like it really blew my mind when I saw it.
84.
In '94, sorry, the 19.
It came out, I think, in like '94.
Yeah, sorry, and the one that stars Van Damme in it. He was
1994. I've seen it many times.
Zangief or Zangief. Zangief, there you go. Yeah, he played Zangief. So yeah, the guy who played Max Shrek's son played Zangief in that 1984 Street Fighter movie. It really blew my mind when I found out.
94.
Sorry, 94.
There were no Street Fighter movies in the 80s because Street Fighter didn't exist yet as a movie. And then they did a video game based on the movie where all the characters were designed after the actors in the movie. And man, the graphics were horrible. I remember. Made my brain hurt. But, with Returns, he called Van Damme because that's what the studio said when they saw the box office. Damn.
Well,
good one, Zach. That's a good.
I got to throw out some praise on
Go ahead,
Danny
bud.
because it is really one of my all-time favorite bad guy portrayals, dude. It may be a little, flawed, but he's an operatic fucking character, man. He's a big character. To me, he's almost Shakespearean the way Danny plays him. So that's kind of right up my alley. And I had considered this because I had always held Batman Returns up in very, very high regard. And I rewatched it recently. I said, "Oh no," and the thought entered my brain. It's not going to be as good as I think, which was true to a certain degree. But for me, Danny was so creepy and his character was intimidating, like the line delivery. You don't really think you'll win, do you? You know, he's so fucking good. And even his little tragic death at the end to me was compelling. But he was a creepy dude,
Need a
man, and he was a
cold
mob
drink.
of ice water.
Of ice water.
He was a mob boss in his own right. But the thing that makes him interesting is it was more like a carny mob boss, which is really unique too. Interesting part, it really is, and also the political aspect was intriguing to me too, because you think, hey, Mayor Cobblepot, what would that look like? But he was cool, man. The umbrella machine and all that shit, I like it. It's one of my all-time favorites, you could say, for Danny. So I did get a little. I am a little protective.
The one umbrella that's the. Oh, as I said, after watching this a few times, especially this last time, I really have come to appreciate the character of the Penguin, Danny DeVito's performance of him. For me, for a while there, he was like the weak link in the movie, but now I honestly do get it because I can kind of connect to him on a certain level and everything. Not so much the homicidal killer I want to destroy Gotham aspect, but the broken individual and everything who just wanted to be accepted and everything, but realized he never would be. And,
but how that aspect, say,
huh?
how real is that aspect of the
You broke
character,
up
though?
there.
He was
I
asking
think there
how
is a
real
part.
is it?
No, I got it. I figured it out. I think there is deep down, maybe somewhere in the deep recesses of his psyche, a part of him that was really that broken and that really that hurt by the fact that his parents abandoned him. But unfortunately, that part of him festered and became tainted and unfortunately made him into the person that he was and ultimately drove him down a ultimately self-destructive path. And we see what revenge, we see what bloodlust, we see what that sort of behavior can lead to, and it can lead to your own self-destruction, and ultimately that's what led to his self-destruction. The difference between me and the Penguin is I sought to get help with my feelings, to work through those feelings of rejection. Zach, you too, bud. Thank you for being here tonight. And I'll talk to you later, buddy. So that's the main difference between me and the Penguin, me and a character like the Penguin. I wanted to get better. He wanted to just wallow in his own pain and his own self-pity until it ultimately turned him into a monster. And that's kind of true of Selena Kyle, but she's not necessarily evil. She is a broken individual who finally breaks the inhibition of speaking out and being herself. And she takes on the persona of Catwoman to do it. It's just a shame we never got to see anything further from that particular version of that character. And I first and foremost hold Warner Brothers and the producers and anything at fault for that. If they had struck while the iron was hot and they had done a solo spin-off film for that version of Catwoman, it probably could have been very good. Because I think Michelle Pfeiffer had the acting chops to carry a movie like that on her own if it was well written and had a good director behind it. Instead, we got what we got with Halle Berry, and it stunk, and that's the shame of it. And I forgot about Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises and everything, and that's not to say that her performance was necessarily bad, but it is to a degree kind of forgettable. And that is, to varying degrees, kind of a shame. Because Anne Hathaway is a talented actress. You want to see her do well. So, but with Returns, I know there was a lot of backlash and everything. That part I do remember very vividly. I remember a lot of backlash because of the dark tone, because of the clowns that were painted up to look very fierce and scary. The clowns that had the skull heads on, and all of that. And Warner Brothers was getting all sorts of hateful fan mail, and there was all sorts of news reports coming out about the backlash on Batman Returns. And we touched upon. I didn't really get a chance to say it and everything, and I'm not complaining or anything. There's even a line of dialogue by the Joker, the Penguin's own gang, saying, "Kidnapping little babies? Are you serious?"
Oh, the one
That
that he got
is,
shot, right? One of the one that got shot, right? Yeah, that was
yeah,
dark.
yeah, and that is, to a degree, that is a very dark place to take a movie. Ultimately, it does not happen. The Batman stops them all, and then, of course, sends the Penguin that little note. "Dear Penguin, the children of Gotham City regret to inform you they will not be able to attend. Signed, the Batman." And he just goes absolutely bonkers. That's what drives him to go, "Okay, fine. We're going to destroy Gotham from anything with a bunch of rockets." So, and I'll bring up. Well, yeah, George. Let's just be honest. You're all guys. You're all adults. We all know why Michelle Pfeiffer's performance. Granted, her performance was good, but it was that damn costume. Let's all be honest here. I'm just saying, we're adults here. We can admit it. Michelle Pfeiffer was sexy as hell in Batman Returns.
I mean, you get my point, right? When it comes to Michelle Pfeiffer's interpretation, or should I say, Tim Burton's interpretation of Catwoman, it's very much a
Mm-hmm.
departure from the source material, where she's just a typical cat burglar, doing athletic
Yes.
gymnastic stuff. Yeah, but in this movie is very very metahuman, I would say. I mean, again, she was like pushed out of the window by her own boss. She gets her head injured, and then she was bitten by a cat, like like it's like the equivalent of a radioactive spider biting Peter Parker or something. Yeah, it's somehow brought back to life
Yeah,
by
man. Speaking,
cats.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that is. I don't know if I would say that is original, but it's Tim Burton's interpretation, and I don't want to complain a lot. But again, and the way, like, she was resurrected and came back, and she had a bit of personality change, that is just insane. And she even her character arc was just trying to get revenge on the boss who pushed her, and she did. And yeah, she killed Max Shrek by the end, and yeah, her arc is kind of complete. Yeah, it's odd that
Yeah.
that kind of character really stood out more compared to Anne Hathaway. I mean, like, again, because because Batman Returns really had a have arc for four different characters. You got Batman and Bruce Wayne. You got Selena Kyle Catwoman. You got Oswald Penguin, and you got Max Shrek. Those are the four core characters that they're like focusing on, and it felt like really jam packed, to be honest, because there are more like characters like you could explore. I mean, you still get Alfred, you still get Commissioner Gordon, but they were in the background. I mean, again, the spotlight was more
Yeah.
into Batman, Catwoman, Penguin, and Max Shrek, because they were the star of this movie. Um, and it almost felt it felt like the movie was so jam packed. It's like so jam packed, like a Thanksgiving turkey. And like there's so many things like you could still like probably explore, but then again, there's sometimes like there are continuity errors, I would say. Like the one continuity error that kind of bothers me about Batman Returns is like what happened to Harvey Dent and Alexander Knox? I thought like they could deserve like a role in this movie. Yeah, as I said again, the movie was jam packed. It's like a
Yeah.
Thanksgiving turkey. Like you can have that explored. I felt like that's a continuity error to me because I heard that Billy D. Williams took the role of Harvey Dent because of his fascination of his evolution from from a district attorney to becoming the crime boss in Gotham.
The criminal.
That's kind of like the crime in Gotham. So like having him not presented in Batman Returns is kind of like it's kind of like an error right there. Like okay, so he's not there. Like is he like okay? Batman Forever has Two Face now, but wait, that's not like Billy D. Williams. Yeah, so they get so they got Tommy Lee
No, it's
Jones
Tommy
for
Lee Jones.
yeah, they got Tommy Lee Jones. So wait, Harvey Dent is
And
white now. So yeah, that's kind of a continuity error right there, just to point out to you. But yeah, but then
well,
again, I felt like sorry, I felt like having not having Harvey Dent, in Batman Returns, kind of like killed the chance of having him, having the character an arc. I mean, that's to me was my complaint. But I don't know about I don't know about you though. I mean, is it a problem when it comes to continuity error, Ambassador?
in terms of continuity error, I don't necessarily see that as a continuity error because honestly, Alexander Knox, while he was a good character in Batman '89, would I've liked to have seen him again? Sure, but would he have really added anything to the story? He would have been the same um, journalist, investigatorial journalist that he was in the first movie, and do we really need to repeat that beat again? Not necessarily. Did I like Robert Wool as Alexander Knox? Sure, I did. Absolutely. Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. He was good. He was very good. I'm not gonna lie and say he wasn't because he was. But again, would he have fit in the story that was being told here? Could they have made a place for him? Sure, they could have. Or anything? Could they have had maybe one or two scenes with him? Sure. We don't. I don't know offhand why exactly Billy D. Williams wasn't in Batman Returns. I don't know if there was a casting conflict, if he simply decided not to return, or whatever the case may be. But Tommy Lee Jones, I liked Tommy Lee Jones as Two Face. I know some people don't care for it and everything. I know a lot of people don't care for um, Tommy Lee Jones's portrayal of Two Face or anything because it is a departure from what we know in the comics and the animated series. At the same time, it's Tommy Lee Jones. I like him as an actor. I thought he did a good job with the material he was given. Zach has his take on Batman Forever, and he and most people know it and everything. I'll give it briefly here. He hates Batman Forever. He considers it torture, whereas I consider Batman and Robin torture. And I think to just put the two parallels there. But not having those two characters in the movie didn't really detract from my enjoyment of it. Was I may have been a little inquisitive as to why they weren't in there? Sure. But it wasn't a deal breaker for me in terms of my overall enjoyment or the quality of the film itself. Um, I will say this, and George has made a few comments in here as well, and everything. Y'all can see him there. Batman '89 did feel like a studio film being headed by Tim Burton. Batman Returns felt more like a Batman movie headed by Tim Burton. It had more of his sensibility melded into it. There was some of his sensibilities in '89, and there wasn't anywhere near the level of studio interference on '89, where there was some studio requests, not so much interference, but definitely studio requests for Batman Returns, and Burton did do his best to work those in as he could. The thing that was kind of interesting, watching the interviews and so on in the aftermath of Batman Returns, obviously it was very profitable. It was very well received by the fans, and obviously there was the backlash and everything, the controversy as well. And Burton went into one of the producer's offices one day and has sat down, and he's like, well, next Batman movie, and the producer or the execs or whoever, they're like, well, you've done 2 Batman movies now. Wouldn't you rather go back and do something smaller and do something else of something more along the lines of your own from your own aspect or anything, do something that's not involved in a franchise? And he's like, you guys don't want me doing another Batman movie, do you? And they're like, oh, no, of course not, no. But we obviously know how that turned out. And
yeah, I've seen the interview, by the way. Yeah, he said he was toying about doing another one, but it's unfortunate because of the backlash that happened.
Yeah. Well, I talked about this, and I can talk about it briefly here, and if you want to respond, Ferris, obviously you can. I have always been intrigued by the idea of the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. I have seen some of the deleted footage from Batman Forever, and yeah, it is a darker take, which is what Joel Schumacher wanted to do initially, but unfortunately he got overridden by the studio. He got overridden by Warner Brothers. And that's unfortunate, because I think if they had been able to keep that darker tone, well, don't misunderstand me. I love Batman Forever to death. It was the first Batman movie I saw in theaters. I talked about this when I got started this evening. There will always be a soft spot for me for Batman Forever. That is just a given.
Same for me.
But would I love to see the Schumacher cut of it? The darker version with all the other added footage and the other added story elements and so on? Yeah, I would. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I wouldn't, because I would. Do I think Batman Returns is a dark film or has darker things in it? Yes, I do. But I don't think that was as much... I don't think that's as much as an issue as it was built up to be by the public. Because I'm going to be brutally candid here. I was a preteen in the early 90s, and I was a teen in the 90s. If I had expressed interest in going to see this movie, do I think Mother Ambassador would have gone with me or taken me to see it? Yeah, she probably would have. Would it have upset me or disturbed me with some of the content in it? No, it probably wouldn't have. Because I grew up watching action films. I grew up watching action movies. I grew up watching action adventure movies as a kid and as a teenager. Do I think maybe this movie came out at the wrong time in the public eye? Maybe it did. Maybe they should have waited a few years to release it, but they wanted to strike while the iron was hot, while the success of 89 was still fresh in everybody's mind. That's not a bad thing to do. But I think the fact that a bunch of corporations, namely toy manufacturers and merchandisers, got their knickers in a wad because of a darker themed film, hurting their bottom line when an artist's ability to tell the story that they wanted to tell was ultimately influenced because of merchandising.
Yes, that is the one thing that I do want to talk about, about this movie. Like, when I heard the backlash of this movie, that really happened. So the thing that comes in my mind, like when they were trying to promote this film, and even toy industries or food industries or whatever. I'm thinking in my mind, like, what in the hell were they thinking of getting McDonald's to sponsor this movie? Well, this movie itself is rated PG-13, while McDonald's are always sponsoring PG movies. That's always been, the
Mhm.
question in my mind. Like, this isn't a cartoon; it's a movie, and it's for the age of 13 and above. Like, who is the moron that think, hey, let's promote this a movie from for McDonald's or something like that is totally a wrong idea. I mean, even if if they didn't have McDonald's, we could have still had a third movie with Tim Burton in it. I mean, that's just to
Maybe.
me though. I mean, yeah. What do you think of the whole McDonald's situation thing, Ambassador?
Well, honestly, I think it was a bit ridiculous because you have a food franchise, one of the most well recognizable food franchises in the world, telling a movie studio, "Hey, your PG-13 rated movie hurt our sales of Batman merchandise." To me, that's preposterous. You're a burger joint. Sell burgers, sell fries, sell sodas, sell Happy Meals. But you don't have to have a damn Happy Meal toy tie-in to the movie. I think on Warner Brothers' part, that was a stupid, stupid move. I mean, they certainly didn't do it to the best of my knowledge with with Batman '89, and obviously they did with Batman Forever and Batman Returns. I mean, they even had these commemorative cups and everything that you could get and so on. Now, I didn't get one, obviously, and everything. But don't misunderstand me. Am I a collector of action figures and other memorabilia from movie franchises? Yes, I am. Namely Star Wars and Marvel and a few other odds and ends here and there. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I don't collect. I do. We have a whole room in our house and everything that is got a fair bit of mine and Mam Ambassador's collection, which is Star Wars and Marvel. But they needed to read the room a bit better in terms of Warner Brothers and say, okay, this is a PG-13 rated movie. Maybe we shouldn't have a Happy Meal tie-in with McDonald's. That for me right there was the biggest damn blunder I can think of. Not the movie itself. You want to have a darker themed movie, then by all means have a darker themed movie. People will go see it. If you look, I did a video and everything. It was a stream and everything back a couple of years ago, discussing why we like darker themed stories and movies. One of them's right behind me here. And from what I hear, this other one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is a somewhat darker film that deals with darker themes and darker subject matter. Now, does it have humor in it? Yeah, from what I hear, it does. But these film studios, they need to learn to read the room better, and I think they have gotten to where they do read the room better and pick their opportunities for marketing and merchandising in a better way. But the marketing in that particular aspect for Batman Returns was beyond stupidity.
Yeah, I think like compared to the marketing in '89, I think it's no wonder like at the time it was still like the highest grossing Batman movie until The Dark Knight took like go like took that spot. So
Mhm.
so now like looking back looking back at it looking back at it now, like for Batman Returns, like, yeah, these guys should have, whoever thought the idea of making a Happy Meal tie-in for a PG-13 movie should have think twice, okay, or else you ruin a studio's reputation. So it's a bit ironic when Joker is trying to kill Batman. Ronald McDonald is the one that killed the Batman franchise.
Well, Ronald McDonald to a degree, but more so the executives at Warner Brothers to a greater degree. But there's blame to be shared on both sides because the people at McDonald's should have said, maybe we shouldn't do a Happy Meal tie-in for this movie. Probably wouldn't be the best move. But yeah, because of the blunders of some executives, we lost out on the opportunity to see a really great follow-up film and everything for Batman Returns in the form of Batman Forever. And I hope someday, whenever it does come, if it does come, I get to see the Schumacher cut. I truly do. I would be lying and say if I didn't say I'm still not intrigued. I am, because while I do respect other people's positions on Joel Schumacher as a director, he has done films that I do enjoy, and he has done some films that I still need to see that I think I would enjoy. And
Saint
it's a
Elmo's
shame.
Fire. Yeah, let's not forget Saint Elmo's Fire and what's it called? The Lost Boys.
Falling Down,
Those were class. Yeah, Falling Down. Those were classics.
Falling Down, they are. So, but to kind of start wrapping this up because we're coming up on 3 hours. Not that I haven't enjoyed this. Believe me, I have. This has been. I'm glad you reached out to me, Ferris, for this idea for this stream, because these are two movies that one that I love and one that has really grown on me over the last couple of years and everything, having seen it a few times now and now owning it on Blu-ray. You know, 89 and Returns, they always stand on their own. Anything. If you want to detach Forever and Batman and Robin from them, you can. And you have a great duology. You have a great pair of films right here. And they're a very strong example for how good, mature storytelling can be presented in the superhero or comic book movie genre. And I think there have been movies that have come out in the years after these films that have gotten up to that bar or have even gotten close to that bar. And I look forward to Tim Miller's Batman trilogy. I love the Batman. I'm sure I'll enjoy the other two. And well, to kind of wrap this up with a favorite quote of mine from Batman 89. And I'll take the banner down. This is from the scene between Bruce and Vicky. She says to him, "Can you tell me if we're at least going to try and love each other? Love each other?" And he's like, "I want us to try." But he's like, right now, he's out there, and I've got a job to do. And he goes off, he puts on the suit, and he goes out.
One thing that I really do want to talk about, that that part right there, because that's the motivation of Michael Keaton's Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne to becoming Batman. Is like, it's kind of like I said, like Bruce Wayne is mysterious. Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is so mysterious, and the only thing that kind of like makes him becoming Batman is because nobody else can. It's not a perfect world. So that's what he said. It's kind of weird that like when I said before that that Joker kind of has the spotlight for Batman 89, while while the character of Batman is kind of mysterious, and so does Bruce Wayne. We kind of get that explored in in Batman Forever, and that Batman Forever, like, it was originally called Batman 3, but it was supposed to be written for Michael Keaton and Robin Williams. I mean, just to give facts there. I mean, were you? Were you that? Were you pissed that Tim Burton didn't come back to do the third movie?
I was to a degree because I enjoyed 89 so much and I did like aspects of Returns at the time. But at the same time, I was willing to give Schumacher a chance. And, they had Val Kilmer, they had Jim Carrey, they had um, Tommy Lee Jones in the cast. They had Nicole Kidman as, what's her? Damn it.
Chase Meridian,
Okay. Chase Meridian, yeah. And they had
then Chris
Chris
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell as. So they had a solid cast. I was willing to give this movie a chance, and I was very entertained. So I didn't know at the time why Tim Burton had not come back, and I didn't know why Michael Keaton had not come back either. So it didn't affect me as much. Does it affect me now, knowing what I know? Very superficially. Not to any great degree, to be perfectly honest. I would have liked to have. I'm still on the fence about Robin Williams being in the Superman or the Batman franchise because I just don't think he's the right fit. I don't think he's a bad actor to any degree, but I just don't think he would be the right fit for this franchise or would have been the right fit for this franchise. Jim Carrey as the Riddler, I know people there is a detractors for that role, but I liked Jim Carrey. You can go listen to you can go watch the review, the replay of the watch along. You can watch my review and everything. I give my take there, but just to say it simply, I liked Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't because I did because I do.
Yeah, I mean,
But
can't act like I wasn't. Sorry, I can't act like I wasn't entertained by Batman Forever. I mean, I was so entertained. I mean, again, like you said, you're curious about the Schumacher cut, and I'm also curious about the Schumacher cut too. And like you said, it's still entertaining to watch Batman Forever. I mean, that movie wouldn't exist without the incredible Batman Forever soundtrack. I mean, come on, you got U2, you got Seal, you got the Offsprings, anything 90s stuff anything 90s stuff in there. And again, I would have loved to see like what Tim Burton do to a third movie, but you got a Batman 89 comic. I mean, honestly though, in case you don't know, you actually got 3 legacy sequels, to be honest. You got Batman Forever. You got the Batman 89 comic, which is written by the 89 movie writer and the Returns writer Sam Hamm, because Sam Hamm wrote Batman 89 along with Warren Scarron, who was the screenwriter of Beetlejuice. Then Batman Returns not only has not only that Batman Returns has Sam Hamm, who has story credit, but also they brought in Daniel Waters. Daniel Waters is the screenwriter of Demolition Man, starring Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Freaking love that movie, by the way. Then of course,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, people didn't really like it, but I think over time, people kind of think it's a cult classic. I mean, do you think it's a cult classic? I mean, I like it, by the way.
What, Demolition Man?
It was awesome. Yeah, Demolition Man.
I did. This is again my backlog. I've got a big old backlog of reviews I've done. I actually did a duo review of Judge Dredd with Stallone and Demolition Man both. Demolition Man is one of my all-time favorite, in my list of all-time favorite movies. So, and I do want to say hello to the chat and everything. Everything, good friend of the channel and everything. Haven't talked to her in a while. Fiona Wolf says a feather in the cap for these movies. At least they didn't deconstruct the characters. Just got in from work. Yeah, and Fiona, good to see you, my friend. Miss you, and hope you're not working too hard, kiddo. And she says, of course, I love Demolition Man. Anybody with a pulse or a soul loves Demolition Man. How can you not love Demolition Man? I mean,
Phoenix.
Yeah, and the three seashells.
Yeah, what? Seriously, nobody knows how that functions. To this day, Sandra Bullock does not know. I bet Stallone doesn't know as well.
Okay, there is a YouTube channel. He's a movie reviewer too. You may have heard of him, Nostalgia Critic. You ever heard of him?
Oh yeah, I kind of get into YouTube because of him. I make my YouTube channel because of him. He was kind of an inspiration.
He was a little bit for me as well. And everything. He did a review of Demolition Man, and they had some few a couple of funny skits and everything during the course of his review. Where he has this contest for two of his fellow cast members and everything for his studio. Um, Sorry. He's like, I want you to come up with theories how the three seashells work. The one guy came up with the theory that the three seashells, they take seashells and turn them into toilet paper. They take seashells and turn it into toilet paper to wipe your ass with.
I thought that's insane theory, but honestly,
It
Daniel
is,
Waters, who
but
wrote Daniel Waters, who wrote Demolition Man, I really should thank him for making such a really classic movie. But anyway, going back to Batman Returns, I didn't know there was an uncredited rewrite. There was an uncredited draft that was written by Wesley Strick. He was the screenwriter of Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear. I don't know if you watched Cape Fear before. It's Martin Scorsese's film.
I've heard of it, never seen it. I know of it very well and everything. It's just I've never seen it. So
Oh,
it's actually
he was
fine.
also sorry.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I'll go for yeah. I'll go first. He was also the writer of The Saint, the one that stars Val Kilmer. I don't know if you seen that. It's a
I've
really good
seen it.
movie of
Yes, it
yeah.
is. Mhm.
I think that's
It's
probably
been a
like
long time.
one of my favorite Val Kilmer movies. Pretty underrated to be honest.
It kind of is and everything. I remember going to see, it was actually based on an old TV show. And I think the main character was played by Roger Moore, who actually makes a voice cameo at the end. He does the voice of a news reporter, I believe it is. Um, it has been a long time since I've seen The Saint, but yeah, I and everything. I really enjoyed it and everything because well, it's Val Kilmer, and how can you not love Val Kilmer? It's a shame what's happened to him, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I love his last appearance in Top Gun Maverick. I don't know if you already watch it or not. He really brought me to tears.
Oh yeah, I went to see it in theaters, and I absolutely loved it and everything. And I can't remember. Did I ever do a review of it? I think I did. It's been so long. I've done so many. But yeah, I did enjoy seeing him again in Top Gun Maverick and everything. I like how they worked around his disability and his illness and everything so that he could still um perform and make an appearance in the movie. So it was a nice touch and everything. So yeah, and that's the
Oh
thing
yeah.
about go ahead,
Sorry.
Ferris.
Yeah, I do want to go back to go back to the problem of Batman Returns. I don't know if you know about this, but since they were like three writers in this movie, Sam Hamm, Daniel Waters, and Wesley Strick, who had an uncredited writing, um, there are some things that that were cut in the film. Did you know that Robin was almost in Batman Returns?
I knew that Robin was potentially going to be in '89 and returns both. Yeah, I was aware of that. I don't think having him make an appearance in either one would have been a good move. I think introducing him in Forever was the right spot to put it because I think he worked well within the construct of what that movie was exploring and the dynamics that it was dealing with because he was a very good reflection and a very good um, concept for, or not concept, but he was a very good bouncing off point for Bruce and anything in terms of having someone to mentor to and to um, kind of help guide along the path and everything that he had gone down himself. So I don't think having Robin in either, definitely not in Batman '89, and most definitely not in Batman Returns or anything. Having Robin there would have fit.
Yeah, I agree too because in '89 it solely focused on it focused on the hero villain aspect, which is Batman and Joker, while Batman Returns was so jam packed, so it's no wonder that Robin has to be written off. So, and I don't know if you know about this. They did cast an actor in for Batman 80 or for Robin in Batman '89 during pre-production, and like weeks before filming, the character was written out. So the same thing that happens with with Batman Returns, but somehow that version of Robin that was supposed to appear in Batman Returns actually appeared in the Batman '89 comic, and he was black. I mean, you know who was going to play Robin in Batman Returns, right? Did you or did you not? No.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so this is probably going to blow your mind off, like who Tim Burton cast as Robin in Batman Returns. Tim Burton was going to cast 19-year-old Marlon Wayans as Robin. Marlon Wayans, that funny guy that I love in the late 90s and early 2000s, was Tim Burton's choice to play the Boy Wonder. Like, what? That's I don't know about it. I mean, the character was rewritten when Daniel Waters came in, and he was written as a mechanic, not as a acrobat circus. So I mean, thank God we got Chris O'Donnell, but Robin as a mechanic, played by Marlon Wayans, that didn't really fit me in my opinion. Okay, I don't know about you. Do you think Chris O'Donnell is at the right age playing a teenager? Because he was 24 and Marlon Wayans was 19, playing a teenager. I mean, it's really odd that whatever they cast whether it's a 20-year-old, 20-year-old or late teen, whatever, as Robin. Do you think it should be played by age appropriate?
It depends on the type of dynamic that you want between Batman and Robin. Depending on the casting that you want to do. Do I think Chris O'Donnell was a good Dick Grayson? Yeah. Was he maybe just a little older than maybe the character should have been? Yeah, but again, you don't want to restrict yourself so stringently in terms of age appropriate casting that you might shove out a actor or actress that might give you the best performance. So I can forgive having a slightly older Robin cast, or a slightly older actor cast in the role of Robin, rather than having an actor that's is completely ill suited for the role altogether. Now, the idea of a African American Robin, I don't care. As long as the actor or actress can act, if they can do the part, then give it to them. And if they're willing to accept the part and what's being written, then sure, do it. But no, I'm not opposed to casting for different actors of different characters of younger ages and everything, or of a particular age demographic.
I actually have a fan cast idea for who I should think should be Dick Grayson, aka Robin, for Michael Keaton's Batman. I mean, Chris O'Donnell is good for Val Kilmer, but I mean, this is just my personal pick for Robin to Michael Keaton's Batman. I like this. I like this idea though, and sadly, this actor does not act anymore. Like around like the 2000s. I think it would have been great. Mike Vitar. If you don't know that actor, I think you never watched The Sandlot, because The Sandlot is like one of my favorite childhood films. You ever watched The Sandlot?
Never have, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, well, the Sandlot is a really good movie, and the character, the character who in The Sandlot was Benny the Jet Rodriguez. So he, I thought like when I saw him in that movie, I thought he screams Dick Grayson to me. I mean, that's just my personal pick. I mean, I mean, you can disagree with me all you want, but that's just my personal pick. But then again, like having having Chris O'Donnell, I think really brings to a really different level. I mean, he was 24 playing a 17-year-old. Yeah, playing a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, 19-year-old. It's pretty obvious. I mean, Toby Maguire was 26 when he played Peter Parker. He's playing a 17-year-old. I mean, how about look at the cast of Dawson's Creek? I mean, they were in their late teens or early 20s at the time. James Vanderbeek, Michelle Williams, Joshua Jackson, and Katie Holmes. Yeah, it's pretty odd that when you're casting a
You
teenager, it
know,
has to be like, yeah.
uh, here's the thing: you didn't even necessarily have to have Robin as a teenager. You could have him as a younger adult. You could have him in his late teens or early 20s, and he could still have worked. You could still have the mentor and the mentor and student relationship or dynamic between Bruce and Dick, and it would have worked. So, but do want to say hello to the chat, Tim Stock. Good to see you, buddy. And yeah, to Mephisto as Nightwing confirmed by my sources from the Warner Brothers. So, but I do want to wrap up. My back's starting to give me a little grief here. So, I'm gonna let you give your final thoughts, Ferris, and I'll do mine, and we'll call it an evening. So, floor is yours, buddy.
Well, Batman 89, and Batman Returns, they're not my first, experience with Batman movies, but, I'm really glad that I get to watch those two movies on VHS, even though they're sometimes having a bit of a problem when it comes to, behind the scenes stuff or the marketing or whatever. But it's still the Batman movie that kind of revitalized, the character, which, inspired every, like young readers like I do, getting a Batman comic, which was my first Batman comic was Batman Year One. So I did get to read other stuff like The Long Halloween and Dark Victory by Jeff Loeb. Again, it's like one of my all-time favorites. But this. I think the movie still holds up. Despite its flaws. But I think it's still a watchable movie to every Batman fan. So I guess to me I still give Batman 89 8.5 out of 10. Batman Returns maybe a 8.6 out of 10. Again, it's still good, still good movies. It still has flaws, but I enjoy them no matter how. I still love like the legacy that was held by Tim Burton with either Batman Forever or Batman 89 the comic. And yeah, and in case you don't know, there's actually a secret sequel to Batman 89 Batman Returns, which is the Birds of Prey TV series in 2002. If you haven't seen it, that's actually a secret sequel to Batman 89's Batman Returns.
I was aware of Birds of Prey. I did watch it and everything, of a little bit, not a lot and everything, and it was okay. So, um, as for my final thoughts on 89 and Returns, one's a masterpiece, one is damn near close to it. And for me, if it weren't for those two movies, I think the superhero movie or the comic book movie genre would have been set back for a while more than it already had been and everything, or at least we wouldn't have gotten more serious stories in response to in terms of the response to these two films, because these were very mature and very serious, and in some instances a lot darker than superhero movies have been before that and even since. So and I do want to respond to Tim's question. Tim, I'm actually going to be going to see it next weekend with a buddy of mine, actually a couple of buddies of mine, I believe. I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a live stream review of Across the Spider-Verse. I might or anything. I just would have to obviously make the time. So, um, And to respond to Zach's comment here, I'll bring that up. I shot Birds of Prey. I watched the opening, and the explosion was purple and blue and pink, and they couldn't even do an explosion right. So I get what you're saying, Zach, and everything. So, um,
I was talking
I
about
do.
the Birds of Prey TV series, actually, not the movie.
Oh, well, yeah.
There's
Okay, I think
the
Zach. I
TV
think Zach
series.
got. I think Zach. The TV series. Yeah, I did watch the TV series a little bit. I knew exactly what you're talking about. I think Zach got confused. So, the TV series was okay. From what little bit I watched of it and everything, uh, it was fairly faithful to the source material in terms of Barbara Gordon being crippled and everything by the Joker in the story, the Killing Joke, and so on. And they, of course, they had the Huntress,
She was
and
played by Dina Meyer. Sorry,
yep,
Barbara Gordon was played by Dina Meyer.
yep,
DZ Flores
I
from
know,
Starship
yep,
Troopers.
I know,
Wow.
eh, yep, I know. And I may eventually do that. I may do a review of that movie and everything down the road. So, but speaking of stuff that's coming up down the road, for those who didn't catch my channel updates and everything, I usually try to do these before at the beginning or end of my streams. Later this month, or well, in about a week or so, gonna be kicking off a brand new review series. The as I said there, I'll say here, things are going to get disastrous here on the Ambassadorial wing because we're going to be discussing the disaster movies of the 1990s. Uh, Armageddon, Deep Impact, um, Dante's Peak and Volcano, and of course Twister. So I'll be scheduling those out, and I'll keep you all updated on when those are going to be going and everything. So, and I've also got reviews for other films coming out and everything over the next few weeks and few months as well. So, obviously, keep an eye on my social media. Make sure you go and make sure you go check out Ferris's channel. Follow him on his Instagram account and everything. And if you don't follow him already, go ahead and do so. But I want to thank everybody that tuned in this evening, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. Of course, leave your comments down below. Anything me and Ferris and Zach brought up. And if you enjoyed this stream and you had not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. But with all that being said, y'all have a great night. We will see you all next time. Stay ambassadorial. And until next time, these are the ambassadors. Signing off.
Let's be friends.
Have you not?
And here